piece of information that prematurely released. Respect to how things actually work, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Are you?
I didn't intend that pun. But
Are you?
I was going to point it out.
Based on what you've learned so far and your
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Julie Kay here with Jeb in the Live Impact studio. We have a lot of important stories, of course, that we need to get to today, both nationally, statewide, and here in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, and some live things coming up in the next half hour. So stay tuned. We've got a live press conference that we're going to bring you. But first, we're going to start here locally in the city of Charlotte and at the state level. So as we all know about that CMPD investigation into the CMPD payout that Chief Jennings received months ago, City Council and the city government was really on blast publicly and at the state level with a state auditor investigation. Today, just in the last couple hours, we got the results of that special report from State Auditor Dave Bolick. So taking a look at some highlights here, this they say highlights a lack of transparency and urgency related to the release of the closed minutes, which still has not happened from that closed session where the city council decided on this payout to Chief Jennings. Of course, some background, if we've talked about this a lot, but this is a very confusing situation. So you may remember back in May when this was first initially kind of hitting the news and hitting the social media. There were reports initially of this payout. We did not know how much there was. The reports were that this was about a disagreement between CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings and former Councilman Tark Bakari. Now, Tark Bakari left to join the Trump administration, which he recently also stepped back from, but that spot was open. However, when Tark Bakari was in city council, he and Chief Jennings pretty publicly disagreed about the use of CMPD wearing outer carrier vests. Tark Bakari was pushing for it. Chief Jennings was pushing against it. And in that disagreement, in that dispute, Chief Jennings say that his rights were violated and that this was beyond a disagreement, both publicly and privately. So we did get the information about that settlement, about $305,000 that was going to be paid to Chief Jennings. However, they only got this information after the state auditor announced they would be investigating. Chief Jennings worked with the city attorney and city leadership to make sure that he could legally announce this information. That also came with a retirement announcement that he would be stepping back and retiring on January 1st of 2026. So we've got that press release up from the state auditor's office. So I'm going to read some of it here if we can pull that up. Stand by. This is a quote from State Auditor Bullock. We launched this investigation because the people of Charlotte deserve to know how their money is being spent. This is the people's money, and it shouldn't be kept behind closed doors. Our report brought transparency to the city of Charlotte. However, as shown in the mayor's response, city leadership doesn't share our interest in being open and transparent about spending people's money. So some pretty heated words from the state auditor. They go on to say the payment had been kept from the public until that announcement was made that the auditor would be investigating this. So that is really where this kind of comes to a head. Now, the investigation from the state auditor did continue even after that number information was released by Chief Jennings and by the city. Just kind of as we can see here, highlighting what they say is a lack of transparency. They have some action steps going forward so that this does not happen again at the city level. So let me see if I can pull up those here. Yes, so we got 3 bullet points. Number 1, improve transparency in settlement reporting. The city should consider adopting a more nuanced policy or practice regarding the release of information related to settlements with employees. While much information related to settlements with employees may be confidential personnel information, at a minimum, the amount paid to an employee as a result of the settlement agreement is public information. So that is from the state auditor. Second recommendation is timely release of closed session minutes. As I mentioned, when this first kind of hit the news in May, this was all kind of closed session information. We could not get that official confirmation until Chief Jennings released it himself. And even to this day, we still have not gotten those closed session minutes from the city of Charlotte. Number 3 would be reevaluate use of general fund for settlement payments. He goes on to write, the city of Charlotte should reassess its treatment of substantial settlement related costs, particularly those incurred to avoid potential litigation as normal operating expenses, and charging such costs to the city's general fund. Part of this investigation was looking into where that $305,000 came from. The majority of it came from the general fund. State auditor says that should not be the case going forward. Now, this, as I mentioned, just came out in the last couple hours, but on Wednesday of this week, we knew that this would be coming out later this week, and State Auditor Dave Bullock was in our Live Impact studio speaking with Nate Morabito, and let's take a listen to that sound now.
Communications with potentially other state officials.
Sorry, I'm
Are you
rambling.
privy to information that the public isn't aware of yet about this case that would be revealing eventually to us, or that you could share?
Well, any information we have right now that we've collected, and we have begun that collection process, well, I don't want to prematurely release that information because, again, we want to put it into context. One small piece of information may not be as instructive if there's another adjoining piece of information that would illuminate a fact. And so to prematurely release information, I don't think would be appropriate.
What about from the chief settlement? I mean, I know in that case, this is Chief Johnny Jennings who's retiring and received that agreed-upon settlement behind closed doors. Really, it took you all applying the pressure for him to eventually say publicly, you all can see this settlement. You're saying that's going to be released, that report, later this week, I assume tomorrow or Friday?
Yes.
Anything you can share ahead of that?
Absolutely. Because the report is done. We just need to release it. And I do agree with you. In looking at it, I'm not sure that the actual public dollars expended would necessarily have been released to the public, but for the fact that we initiated our investigation. So I'm proud of the team for jumping on that. What you will find is a confirmation of the $305,000 that was in fact part of a settlement. You'll be able to, the people will be able to see the source of that funds and where those dollars came from. And there'll be some recommendations with respect to transparency in government and local government that come as a result of that.
The word corruption was thrown around by one council member early on in all of this. Anything that would rise to that level?
I wouldn't use the word corruption. I would say there is, and this is not necessarily singular to just the city of Charlotte, but transparency is a big issue, particularly with the expense of public dollars. It's not a political issue to have public dollars transparently expended. I think people on both sides of the aisle and people who are unaffiliated expect that when government officials, when councils, when mayors, when city managers expend public dollars, that's going to be reported to the public. And they expect that. And it's our job at the state auditor's office to hold those levels of government accountable on explaining that. In our own office, for example, you can go to our website and see how we spend every single dollar. We created a dashboard internally from our data analytics team. And I felt it was important that if I'm going to go out and ask agencies and city councils and small towns, big towns, how they spend their money, that it was important for us at the state auditor's office to let the public know how we spend our money. So you can go to our website and see how we spend every dollar.
One more question on that. Did the city agree with all your all's findings?
Mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, and it's fine. I think in general, yes, they agreed with our findings.
All right, that is State Auditor Dave Bullock here in studio, along with investigative reporter Nate Morabito, answering questions regarding the special report that we just finished asking about regarding the payment to CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings, also the investigation into cats. Mr. Bullock, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course.
And you were just listening into our Wednesday interview with State Auditor Dave Bullock talking about this report that was just released in the last couple hours now about the payout that the city of Charlotte made to CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings, the investigation into how much money, where that money came from, why, and how the city can be more transparent going forward. Really interesting ending to that interview where our Nate Morabito asks, did the city agree? And you heard Dave say mixed bag, but for the majority, yes. So those, it'll be interesting to see those suggestions get put into place over the next few months. We've got a lot more going on at the city level, even just today at the county level as well. Sheriff Gary McFadden, Mecklenburg County Sheriff, is now facing a federal lawsuit. The former employee with the sheriff's office is suing him for wrongful termination and racial discrimination. We're going to have that press conference for you live at 1 p.m. where we can hopefully get some more information on what that lawsuit entails and why. Of course, this comes in a string of drama at the sheriff's office here in Mecklenburg County, so that's going to be really interesting. Stick with us over the next 20 minutes. And then as we go on through Live Impact News, of course, we're going to hit some of the other big national stories, the assassination, the murder of Charlie Kirk, the fallout of that politically, and what comes next. We're going to take a quick break, though, and get situated, but please stick with us. We've got a lot more coming up. All right, we're coming back out to you after the break. Like I mentioned, we've got a lot of city and county news, even state news to get to, but we're going to take you actually to a different state for a little while. A story that we're watching out of the Nebraska legislature. Their Urban Affairs Committee is discussing the potential for a new ICE detention facility. Of course, that is going to be a really interesting listen, so let's take a look.
Proving that 7% of the people that are actually being kidnapped and detained are actual criminals. I'm all for holding criminals accountable, whether they're U.S. born or not. I think that's, of course, very important, but let's be real about what's happening here. It's racial profiling. It is absolutely not holding criminals accountable. We need to hold all criminals accountable, but we also need to be true and honest about what's happening here, and this is not it. The detention facility here in Nebraska would be a horrible thing for our state economically, socially, ethically, morally, and I'm absolutely opposed to it.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? No? Thank you. Next testifier.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Hanson, spelled CAITLYN-HANSON. I am a born and raised lifelong Nebraskan. I am here today to oppose ICE detention in our state, and I would like to open with a quote from the Bible. Zechariah, Book 7, verses 9 and 10 state, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, render true judgments, show kindness and mercy to one another. Do not oppress the widow, the orphan, the alien, or the poor, and do not devise evil in your hearts against one another." There are many immigrants in my life that I love dearly. It should not take the love of a white woman for you to see the worth and dignity in your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. There are many nuances in our complex immigration system: employment authorizations, pending asylum reviews. Legal or illegal are not accurate descriptors for many targeted by ICE. They certainly are not labels worthy to strip others of their humanity over. I implore you, your constituents, your taxpayers, do not want Cornhusker Clink or any ICE detention center rearing its ugly beast head in our beautiful state of Nebraska. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next testifier.
Buenos dias, good day. My name is Leonor Fuhrer, Leonorfuhrer. I am a first-generation Mexican-American born to Mexican immigrants. My family came to Nebraska when I was 6 years old by accident, I jokingly say. We were on our way to Chicago and stopped in a small town in northeast Nebraska, and they decided Nebraska was a better place to raise their family. The good life in Nebraska, nice values aligned with what they wanted to raise their children with. They navigated the complex and lengthy, costly immigration system to citizenship. They traveled to Lincoln to access legal immigration services. That was over 30 years ago. The complex immigration system has only gotten more complicated, lengthier, and most definitely costlier. And still today, in my community of Norfolk, immigration legal services are non-existent, requiring travel, additional costs, and it.
All right, you are listening into state leaders in Nebraska, their Urban Affairs Committee, hearing some testimony on how people feel about the potential new ICE detainment facility getting put in there. We're going to hop back to that in a few minutes because of that really interesting testimony, but we're going to be a little bit more local for now. We've got Becca Birdsall in studio to get a look at your forecast. And honestly, I don't know what you're going to talk about. It's so nice out.
It has been such a quiet week of weather, which I'm so thankful for. And
We
I
deserve
think
it.
Everybody deserves this. Yeah. You know what? It extends through this weekend as well. We've got so many, outdoor events happening. Of course, Scarowinds is finally back. I don't know. Have you been, Julie?
I have not been to Scarowinds,
Okay,
but I
it's
do
really
love
fun.
the idea. Well, I like the idea
You like
until
the idea.
Jeb told me that we had the Annabelle doll in earlier this week. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a lot of fun, and you know what? A lot of people end up going.
I'm
so.
surprised, Becca, to hear that you're a Scarowinds person. You didn't give me like a Scarowinds energy. I don't know what that would even look like, but I don't know. Like it's surprising to hear.
Okay. I love roller coasters.
Well, roller coaster 100%, but like Scarowinds is pretty scary. Like I was
Roller coasters are
like,
scary enough.
I don't like when the people follow you.
Yes, that I'm okay.
I
I'm
could
with
do
you
it
on
without that. But I like the vibe and the aesthetic, and it's cool out.
Yes.
So I mean,
Oh, absolutely. That's what's up.
A nice Scarowinds forecast.
yeah, no frightening forecast in this upcoming tonight. So as you can see, as we take a live look outside over towards our Lylesville Anson camera, we've got nothing but blue skies out there with a few afternoon clouds to mix in. Temps responding to that sun. We're up to 80 in Charlotte, 77 in Hickory, and starting to warm up into the 70s over towards the high country. This is that picturesque view of Beach Mountain we've been showing all afternoon long. Just a gorgeous day to be outside from the greater Charlotte area, extending all the way up towards the high country. Headed off for a hike today. That is going to be the thing to do in the high country with those afternoon temperatures sticking into the lower 70s. Now for the greater Charlotte area, we'll see those highs right back where they were for yesterday afternoon. Yesterday we did hit a high of 84 degrees. That is our seasonable average high for this time of year. So we'll continue that going for today with a mix of sunshine and clouds. But tonight and this evening should overall be very pleasant for that Scarowinds forecast. Nothing scary about this. We'll see mainly clear skies, 7 p.m. falling into the upper 70s, 9 p.m. lower 70s, and by the time we get to 11 p.m. starting to fall into the upper 60s. The great weather, well, it continues. It's going to extend through this weekend, likely into the start of the work week as well, but temperatures will be on the warm up, especially those highs going into the second half of the weekend. And finally, you might need that umbrella because rain chances will be returning on Tuesday. In the meantime, we've got a nice breeze out there for this afternoon, up to around 10 to 15 miles per hour. Fast forward into your Saturday, this will ramp up just a little bit with max wind gusts up to around 20. Overall, those should be comfortable, dry, sunny days. Surface map, we've got that high pressure system really dominating the forecast, bringing us those dry and tranquil conditions across the mid-Atlantic. You'll really feel that with these dew points. Of course, dew point is a measure of how much moisture is in the atmosphere. So when we start to see these dew points in the lower to middle 60s, that's fairly comfortable air, but especially over towards the high country in the 50s, that is very refreshing. Here's a picture of your weekend forecast. Like I mentioned, mornings will also be a little bit cool as well, starting off in the upper 50s. So if you do have any early morning plans, may want to grab just a light sweater as you head outdoors, but definitely be able to shed it by the afternoon. If you like cooler weather, the pick of the weekend will be Saturday, highs to the lower 80s. But if you like warmer weather, Sunday will be your pick of the weekend, 86 degrees expected. Today is September 12th. That is typically our average last 90-degree day. And you know what? Looking ahead with these highs in the next 7 days, we've got nothing but 80-degree temperatures out there. Now we will get fairly close, at least to the upper 80s, especially in our South Carolina counties, going into your Sunday, maybe into your Monday as well, with another cool down expected Tuesday and Wednesday. That is going to be as rain chances start to increase. We've got another warm up expected going into your Thursday and Friday as well. Rain chances, well, you won't need that umbrella from now until Monday, but they will start to increase early Tuesday morning. Scattered showers can be expected, and these rain chances will linger into midweek as well. A quick check on the tropics, as of course it is peak hurricane season. It's been fairly quiet over this past week, but the National Hurricane Center is watching this tropical wave that's coming off the coast of Africa, producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Could potentially start to organize as it continues to push westward in a more favorable environment. National Hurricane Center has this tagged. It's about a 40% chance of tropical cyclone development. So by the time we get into early to mid of next week, we could have our next tropical depression. Of course, that would be the 7th storm on the list, and the next name on that would be Gabrielle, so something to watch, but it is still over 3,000 miles away from the United States coast, so nothing too much of a concern as of now. Like I mentioned, the next name on the list is Gabrielle. So 7-day forecast. Today is going to be fantastic for any outdoor activities. Highs very seasonable for this time of year. Lower to middle 80s will really keep this quiet, calm weather going, not only into this weekend, but extending into Monday as well. Next round of rain coming for Tuesday, lingering into midweek as well, but really a lot of good weather in this forecast, especially for the weekend.
Cannot complain. I love that the rain's holding off, so we get to enjoy the
Exactly,
weekend,
yes.
Charlotte FC game, and I imagine you'll be going to Scarowinds based on our conversation earlier.
You know what? Now that it's in my mind,
I do. My favorite part of the fall is when you all have your new graphics with the pumpkins and the bats. And
we've got apple picking.
Ooh.
We've got lots. Yes,
Lots to look forward
choose
to.
from. Yes.
All right, Becca, thank you so much for joining us. Of course. We've got some more to get to all over the country now. We were just, before Becca came to talk to us, looking at that hearing in Nebraska, but now I believe there, Jeb, is that some protesters outside a facility, an ICE detention facility in Illinois? I know this is happening as Chicago has been making headlines, of course. President Donald Trump calling for enforced immigration action in Chicago and blaming a lot on immigrants there, while you can see some troops coming out to have an encounter with those protesters. This is really, really interesting to watch live.
You can keep talking. I'm pulling up some of those mat sounds so you can hear some of the whistles, some of the protesting. It looks like they're engaged in these protesters.
Let's take a listen and see what they're
Get up, there's a car coming, you have to move. There's a car coming, get up and move. There's a car coming, get up.
happening live, so be cautioned if you do not want to hear that. We're watching live at a protest in Chicago, outside Chicago, outside the ICE detention facility, as troops from the facility interact with protesters live. You saw some get dragged on the ground, and now some things are coming down a bit. Protesters still shouting shame that troops are doing to the neighbors.
You did this to the Almighty. Keep that in mind. You did that to God. The terrorizing that you're doing, the families that you're tearing apart, the people that you are killing, you're doing this to Jesus Christ. 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 Do you not understand that? You're doing this to Jesus Christ. You're doing this to Jesus Christ. You're doing this to Jesus Christ. You do this to your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. What you do to the least of these, you do to Jesus Christ. We are peaceful. What you do to the least of these, you do to your Lord and Savior. We are peaceful. You are good. What you do to the least of these, you do to your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Get a real job. What you do to me, you do to your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. It's fine.
Whose streets? Our streets! Our streets!
right, that was a very heated interaction between immigration officials and police and protesters. This is outside of Chicago. It's in Broadview at an immigration detention facility there. We hopped on just minutes ago as that protest was happening, and then you saw it happen live as those troops came out in masks, armed, pushing back the protesters. Some of them were dragged physically by the officials, by the immigration officials. I believe it looks that they were blocking a driveway and they were physically dragged away so that officials could move their vehicles. But very heated scene there. Those troops began to back off after that initial interaction, but protesters continued to scream expletives at them, shouted shame. So a very, very tense moment there. That's outside of Chicago, which of course has been a really key part of President Donald Trump's push to crack down on immigration infractions. Even just this week, Operation Midway Blitz was launched on Monday by the Department of Homeland Security. Chicago's mayor has said that he has not been communicated with about what that entails, and so this protest likely directly related to that increase in immigration enforcement in Chicago. We're going to take another quick break as we come back to Charlotte and see what's happening here more locally, so we will come right back. Stick with us. All right, we're going to get back out pretty quickly to this press conference that's just getting started about a new lawsuit against Sheriff Gary McFadden. Let's listen in.
And please hold those till the end. My name is Mike Doyle. I'm here proudly on behalf of Dr. Angela Rigsby. She's an educated professional who worked very hard in government service for decades and was very proud last year to join the office of the Sheriff of Mecklenburg County as a business manager. She was dedicated to her work. She was dedicated to public service. She was proud to work for the Sheriff's Department of this county. Unfortunately, our investigation has confirmed that the sheriff of this county has actually participated in misconduct of the worst kind when you're talking about public service. Dr. Rigsby, during her work, within months, raised troubling questions both about pay disparities as well as financial irregularities, which are important to the taxpayers and are incredibly important to her as someone who's a safeguard of the public treasury. Instead of acting in a professional, responsible manner, the sheriff attempted to destroy her professionally and personally. In fact, it led to her being picked up by armed officers in a county vehicle and escorted to being fired for the first time in her career in a way that I think speaks to the level of aggressiveness towards folks who report misconduct and honest reporting in public service that we've seen. We believe, as laid out in the complaint, the sheriff must accept this is not a reality TV show. The taxpayers, the citizens of Mecklenburg County, of North Carolina, expect their public servants to actually respond in an appropriate, honest manner to honest reporting of misconduct, irregularities in public service, and that's not what happened here. At this point, it's our job as her lawyers to work hard to both reveal the full extent of what happened to her, also to ensure that her reputation is sustained and returned to her, and at the end of the day, this doesn't continue to happen to the taxpayers, to the citizens, to the hardworking members of the Mecklenburg Sheriff's Department. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Rigsby. Oh, go ahead. Let's switch you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time and attendance today. When I moved to Charlotte 10 years ago, it was with the goal of furthering my professional career. I worked hard to reach my goals and to deliver excellent service to my employers and to the community. On March the 20th, 2024, I reached a high point of my career when I was hired as the Business Operations Director for the Mecklenburg County Sheriff after working in another department for 7 years. This promotion and great career advancement made me proud. Throughout my 35-year career in accounting, finance, and business management, I have stood for honesty, compassion for employees, strong ethics, morals, financial accountability, and compliance. This remained the case during my employment with the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office. On November the 13th, 2024, my world was shattered. I was escorted to the sheriff's headquarters and presented a letter of termination by Sheriff McFadden, which stated my services as an employee of the sheriff's office were no longer required. At the direction of the sheriff, I was then escorted by officers off the premises in a cruel and humiliating way. This was clearly retaliation by Sheriff McFadden because of my reporting of pay disparity and my suspicions of illegal conduct. My attorneys can explain in more detail how this retaliation violated the law. But I believe the evidence will show that my inquiries raised troubling questions about the operations of the Sheriff Department. I also believe my inquiries were a threat to the regime of the sheriff. This retaliation has shattered my life. Because of the sheriff, I have suffered financially, mentally, and emotionally. My 35-year career and reputation were severely damaged. I'm a single mother and a grandmother, but I have been unable to secure employment despite my skills and many years of excellent performance. This has been one of the most difficult times of my life. As a woman of resilience and as a woman of God, I look forward to our day in court. When the truth is seen by a jury and the court, I believe we will prevail. I'm so thankful for my legal team that investigated this situation, believed in me, and now fight for me. I want to set the record straight, and I want justice. In closing, I will continue to stand on these two scriptures. Psalms 27:1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Of whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came against to eat of my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Isaiah 54:17. No weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against me in judgment shall be condemned. With that, I'll turn it back over to my legal team.
Thank you, Ms. Mingo.
I just want to say on behalf of our firm that we are thrilled to be able to assist Mr. Doyle and Dr. Rigsby shine light on the hostile work environment that Gary McFadden has created at the Sheriff's Department, particularly that it affects every single employee in his department, and it also affects all of the residents for whom are under their care.
Thank you. Questions?
Dr. Rigsby, part of this 10 months ago was kind of just raising awareness, telling your story. This is a different step, a bigger step. Why did you feel this step was necessary, taking legal action like this?
I need justice. I think that the community deserves to understand. There's so many stories that come out, and I think people just kind of skim over them. I think they need to understand the magnitude of what really goes on behind the doors of the sheriff's office. And I need justice. I need to be heard. I need for everyone to know that I was doing what was right. I was standing for what was right.
You said this is one of the most difficult periods of your life. What will make it easier? How can you sort of turn the corner from this? Will it be justice?
Yes. Our day in court to prevail in court and justice.
Go.
I was going to say, I know you're not the first to speak out. Do you feel like just the collective speaking out will possibly make a change in the sheriff's office?
Honestly speaking, I think so. I do believe the collective speaking out, but until this is brought to justice, and until he's gone, I think that's when the real change will come. But definitely once we prevail in a court of law.
I have a question regarding the audit findings that you have listed in here as part of the lawsuit. One thing that stood out and was interesting that I hadn't heard about yet was the prior director contracting with personal friends who didn't perform those duties, and that employees were still receiving compensation from the sheriff's office. Can you shed any more light on those findings right now?
I'll probably jump in on this. So, I mean, at this point, we've done an investigation. We've had a chance to review documentation that confirms every single statement in the complaint that was filed today. I don't think getting into those details in a public forum at this point where a judge might want to have a protective order in place, or at this point makes much sense, but I think it's clear to say that there's documentation, hard, solid evidence of every statement in the complaint there, including the statements about financial discrepancies, irregularities with insiders at the Sheriff's Department laid out in the complaint.
Like, just for the purpose of our reporting, is this a federal civil case? Can you touch on the difference between that and this being handled locally?
Well, I mean, federal court is a local court, but yeah, it's filed in federal court here in Charlotte. The legal claims are for 1983. Basically, one of the first issue she raised was pay disparities among senior members of the sheriff's staff, black members as compared to folks who weren't, but it's also protected action under North Carolina law. It's all going to proceed in front of federal court right here in Charlotte.
And the actual legal claim is, I believe it said one count of discrimination. Is that?
No, there's also a count under state law for basically retaliation against an honest reporter.
Okay.
a whistleblower type complaint. But the idea is that, if you're honestly in public service reporting misconduct, financial irregularities, these kind of exact problems that are affecting the public or the department, you're protected under North Carolina law.
Can you speak to how far back the disparities go?
I'd like the complaint to speak for itself, but I think that it was evident to Dr. Rigsby when she first saw the documentation that there was something that had been going on for a long time, where senior members, black members of the sheriff's staff with tremendous education, certifications, responsibility, were not being treated fairly in their pay for a number of years. And that was something she documented in writing, as laid out in the complaint, and made clear to the sheriff, this is a problem that shouldn't be happening in America nowadays.
You said retaliation under state law. Is there also a federal civil rights violation?
Right. So there's two kinds of retaliation that are part of the lawsuit. One part is if you're reporting racial disparities. For example, this pay disparity that race is a part of it. You can't retaliate against someone who's honestly reporting that kind of issue. There's also another type of protected action, and that's just reporting any kind of misconduct or issues that state law of North Carolina protects folks in public service from that.
I do want to get your reaction, Dr. Rigsby, too. Just last month, another chief deputy resigned. It was the second in under a year, and then your situation. When you saw that headline last month, what was your reaction to that?
I felt it coming, and I have spoken to him since then. And it was, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised, but I have spoken to Alan since then.
And he's on your side?
Yes, he is.
Do you think this will prompt more people to speak up, given the fact that it's happened to others as well?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear. People are scared to speak up because the theme has been you're given a nice title, you're given a great salary, and then you're treated the way you're treated. And if you don't, then you run the risk of being fired. So you have a lot of people that are scared to speak out and won't speak out.
You hope that this can bring justice for them as well?
Yes. I have had several people, I've been out with my grandchildren and have had people come up to me and say, thank you for speaking up for us because we can't.
Did you ever think when this first started that it impacted your life the way it is? Like you can't get a job. Do you think the impact would hit you the way it did?
I never imagined that it would be this impactful. I knew that it was hurtful. But I can honestly say today, as of to date, I have applied for over 200 positions and still have not secured a position as of yet, and this has been 10 months. And we're talking about, I have a doctorate degree, a PhD, and 35 years of experience in this field.
So you feel this is following you?
Absolutely.
Because you spoke up in the past, or? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As far as, can you just go over compensation and what you guys are asking for?
Yeah, it's laid out in the complaint. I mean, the law provides basically for lost wages, what it does to you as a human being. Those are all the things that a jury evaluates based on the evidence, and we are looking forward to having the jury make that decision.
So one more legal question in terms of ultimate outcomes outside of the compensation. I believe it was mentioned, removal of the sheriff and having someone new in that position in North Carolina with the Constitution and the sheriff being an elected official. It's a difficult task, right, to actually have a sheriff removed. Can a judge do that?
Yeah, I don't think that's actually,
in
a
the
direct
lawsuit, but ultimate outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, this is a lawsuit filed under the laws that apply. It's not a lawsuit to remove the sheriff. That's for the voters and the public officials of North Carolina to make that decision. I think Dr. Rigsby, based on her experience and it is laid out in the complaint, obviously believes things are not being done right by the sheriff. And, whether the folks that are responsible for making the decision about him continuing office take action is up to them. She's speaking out to make sure everybody knows what the facts are. Let me go, any other questions? Okay. Let me go include, I mean, unfortunately, having done civil rights retaliation cases across the country, one of the things I see, especially in law enforcement, is that you hear talk about bad apples and, you remove the bad apples. Unfortunately, what happens too many times is the folks that speak up, that actually report misconduct in the law enforcement community, they're the ones that are retaliated against. They're the ones that pay the penalty. And so you end up more or less removing the most honest, courageous members of the law enforcement and associated community because they're willing to speak up. And that's what this lawsuit is about preventing.
Thank you all.
Y'all good? Thank you so much for being here, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so that was the announcement from the person that is suing Sheriff Gary McFadden at the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Department, federal charges about wrongful termination. She says she wants her day in court and wants justice. Got a bit emotional there in that presser. We're going to have some more information coming up in our linear shows with our Miles Harris. He was the one listening in there, and he will break down further what that lawsuit means and what comes next in that. Of course, this is a long history now of accusations against Sheriff Gary McFadden. So this really adding to the story here. We've got a lot more to get to, especially with the murder of Charlie Kirk. We know that the government now has someone in custody, they say, and so we're going to get to updates on that in just a little bit. We're going to take a quick break first. We'll have that when we return. All right, you're watching Live Impact News. It is 1:21 in the afternoon. This morning, though, some big news from the murder of Charlie Kirk and that investigation. Again, it's been multiple days, and only this morning did police, law enforcement officials say they had somebody in custody. We're going to take a listen into that presser from this morning with some really interesting information, and we're hoping to get some more later today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I will share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 .30-6 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital O-W-O, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow," and a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who has worked seamlessly together, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and our federal partners with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're grateful for everyone who worked together in such a short amount of time to find this person and to bring justice. I want to thank the public who has been so engaged, reviewing videos, helping us with sending in tips, and helping us get to this point. I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well. I especially want to thank the family of Charlie Kirk, Erica, Charlie's parents, his children. I want us to be thinking of them as we bring justice in this case. They will be involved in that justice. We will be working very closely with them as we move through this process as well. This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah, but I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history. With that, I will now turn the microphone over to the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Thank you, Governor. This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play, and we will play that role, and we will lead out for the federal government. But Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilize these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m., where at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast, and we're so transparent, and we're committed to that transparency. The crime scene, just a little bit there. It is a large crime scene. State and local authorities, along with federal authorities, processed that crime scene quickly, and I even had the ability to walk through that crime scene and walk through the steps the suspect took to learn more about what was needed and what resources we needed to bear to create a full picture for the FBI and leadership back in Washington. Furthermore, thankfully to state and local partners, forensic evidence has been seized and continues to be garnered. Forensic evidence has already been evaluated at FBI laboratories in Quantico and state and local authorities here. We will continue to process evidence as we see it, as we collect it, and we will continue to deliver to Governor Cox and his team. Last night, we had a total of approximately 7,000 leads. As of this morning, thanks to your great work, we have over 11,000 leads that were called in to the FBI, and we are running out every single lead that we can. Every one of those leads will be run out. The arrest is a testament to the dedication of good law enforcement being great and partnerships in law enforcement, which I've tried to highlight as my tenure as the director of the FBI. There is no better relationship.
All right, you have been listening into the press conference from this morning from officials on the update of the suspect that has been apprehended in the murder of Charlie Kirk. So that came this morning, and we're hoping to get some more information about that suspect tonight and in the coming days. But I know a lot of us have questions just after seeing this instance of political violence on such a national stage and seeing now this manhunt ending today. So we've got an expert here. We've got David Schanzer from Duke University School of Public Policy. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be with you.
So tell me a little bit about, I mean, this is such an impactful situation, this tragedy. Tell me about the conversations that you're having with your students after something like this. You're on a college campus. This happened on a school. What are students saying to you, and what are those conversations like at this point?
Well, I literally just walked over from an open forum where we had these kinds of conversations. And I think students are rightly asking the question about what's happening to our country. How is it that we're so divided? How is it that even though it's still a very small number of individuals, how do we individuals end up going to these extreme acts of violence based on their beliefs? And what can we do to get out of this dark period?
What do you, I mean, I know that's such a big question, and that's really what's on a lot of people's minds. How do you have those conversations with students? I want to get into the legacy of Charlie Kirk and how he connected with young people in particular, but how do you respond when you get such a big life question from students like that?
Well, we have to look at history. What I try to tell students is, we have to dig deep and find the common, respect for humanity in all of us. And if we can start the conversations there, then and frankly, I think there's this idea that students are unwilling to talk about hard things and that we don't present those kinds of issues or we don't equip them with the skills at our universities. I think that's totally false, and it's mostly perpetuated by people who don't spend any time on campus and don't spend any time talking to young people. They're perfectly comfortable talking about difference. I think when they get chagrined and when they get when they see their leaders be fully unequipped to have the kinds of and use the kinds of rhetoric that can bring us together as a nation, and instead continually divide them like our current president does.
I think that's a really interesting point you made about students wanting to have these difficult conversations. I mean, that was what Charlie Kirk made his career about, was having those difficult conversations, whether people saw him as divisive or not, on college campuses with students specifically. And so I think for people who weren't quite familiar with his platform prior to this might be surprised to hear, he was not an elected official, though he did have quite a bit of sway in just the movement recently, especially amongst young people. How would you explain the influence that Charlie Kirk had in general in the political sphere right now?
Yeah, I'm not a student of Charlie Kirk's career. Certainly have watched and listened to many of the things he said, especially over the last 2 days. So I don't want to pretend that I'm an authority on something I'm not. I certainly applaud anyone who is going to come and engage in dialogue about the difficult issues of our society, debate, and have that kind of attitude towards politics. He was seems to be a super spirited person. His loss and the way this happened is beyond tragic and beyond horrific. I will say that I don't necessarily believe that his style of this kind of engagement is necessarily the healthiest way to go about our national conversations. I will go to my grave defending his right to say all the things that he says, but I think rhetoric that really is so divisive and dehumanizing for many people is unfortunate, and I think we have maybe too much of that. So while I certainly applaud the spirit that he brought to this endeavor and the way he went about things, I would temper that, because some of the stuff that he says and the way he makes his arguments is dehumanizing, and dehumanization is actually what leads to violence. When we see people who don't agree with us as less than human, that's when people are more able to engage in violent acts. And so those are my concerns.
And David, you mentioned the rhetoric, and that's a word that's been thrown around quite a bit, particularly from the right, about left-wing extremist rhetoric is something that multiple representatives, I know Representative Nancy Mace, close to our area, had mentioned that, and kind of using that to blame the left for acts of political violence. But just to put this in perspective, this is not the only recent act of political violence we've had, correct?
Well, first of all, political violence, unfortunately, has been endemic to the American experience, from times of the founding, of course, through the Civil War and the antebellum period, lots of levels of political violence in the 60s and 70s, and we're seeing a rise and uptick in it today. So it's not a new phenomenon. It is certainly fueled from both sectors of our political spectrum today. There's no doubt about that. The data, if people are interested in data, the Anti-Defamation League is the entity, very bipartisan, very well respected, has data that tries to parse out the motivation of extremist murders. And 100% of those in 2024, it's not the same as 2025, but were from some form of right-wing extremism. And their data also shows over the past 10 years that a majority of the incidents of violent murders based on political ideology came from ideologies of the right, and only 4% from the left. So that's the data. I understand that there have been many, many instances from both sides lately, but it is a source of violence that's been coming to historically more from the right in recent years than the left.
I think what else is causing people some questions is, of course, the reaction afterwards from legislators. As I mentioned earlier, Charlie Kirk was not an elected official, though he did have an incredibly big influence on just kind of the Republican ideology, especially towards young people. But the idea of, public prayer in the Capitol, flags at half-staff. I know Nancy Mace introduced a resolution for him to be held in the Capitol Rotunda. Is that, to your knowledge, unusual for someone who's not elected to public office?
To my knowledge, I did work on the Capitol Hill for 8 years. I thought that was an honor reserved mostly for presidents and maybe former members of Congress, speakers, important senators. But I don't know what the rules are, and I assume that the Congress can decide to do that if they want.
Is there anything that you think people are missing about this conversation, or anything that you want people to know about this conversation that's not being brought to the forefront?
Well, I think divisiveness and political violence is a pox on our country. It is a sign of a society that is not as healthy as it needs to be. And at times like this, we turn to our national leaders, all of them, to see if we can rise above these differences and try to reach a common understanding of where we're going as a country and what we value, what we cherish. We cherish and we love our families, we love our friends, we love our young people, our students on campus, and so on. And can we have a language and rhetoric of love and understanding and of respect for everybody's innate human dignity? And I hope our leaders and especially the president, is able to rise to the occasion and find those words and those actions, rather than the anger that he lashed out on this morning in his statement about identifying one segment of America that is, which is just wrong, responsible for this violence, and also saying, we're going to beat the hell out of the radical lunatic left. I mean, I don't see how that is going to get us to a brighter future where these incidents become more rare.
Really powerful words coming out, I think, just in general, the last few days. I appreciate you taking the time to have these conversations, not just with us, but with those students. I know they really appreciate it as well. Thank you so much for joining us, David. All right, we're going to go ahead and take another quick break, and we'll come back and get to some things that are happening live in our area. Stick with us. All right, we are coming back out. You just heard from a professor of public policy at Duke University about the impact of the murder of Charlie Kirk. Of course, we're getting some more information today that law enforcement officials have detained a suspect. So we're going to continue to listen to that professor or that press conference and see what updates we get. Hopefully we'll get more later today.
Has been phenomenal in leading us through this investigation. I would like to thank the federal government for their resources, their assets. Our local team here, our FBI team, has been extraordinary in helping us work through this and bring this person to justice. Most of all, I would like to thank the public, and specifically, I would like to thank the public who turned to prayers and who turned to positiveness for us. I would like to thank them on behalf of the law enforcement community because we needed those prayers. That's what we needed to get through this. We needed your support, and you gave it to us. We needed your patience, and you gave it to us. And I would like to thank you for the Kirk family because that's what they need, is your support and your prayers, and that will get us through all of this. So thank you everybody for everybody that have stepped up. We've had such a phenomenal response to this. Thank you.
I also want to give a special thanks to the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. Their unwavering support and their commitment to justice is shown true here. And without AG Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and the resources they brought to bear, we would not have been able to complete our mission. And I just want to say special thanks. It's an honor to be a part of the Department of Justice.
Thank you again to our incredible law enforcement team who has worked so hard. Sheriff, I got a solid 90 minutes last night, so I'm probably the most well-rested person up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I get the microphone, so I hope you'll permit me a moment just to share a few more thoughts about where we are and how we got here, and maybe a little bit of where we go from here. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country. And violence is tragic everywhere. And every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those. And specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state, and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youths. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. I want to thank my fellow Utahns. This bad stuff happens. For 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us. That somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I had hoped for, just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. And it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes. Because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency. And I desperately call on every American, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, conservative, MAGA, all of us to please, please, please follow what Charlie taught me. I'll just conclude with words I share often from a friend and author Yuval Levin, who was asked if he was optimistic about our country. And he said, I'm not optimistic. He said, I hate optimism. Like, that sounds bad. But he said, optimism is a vice. It's this idea that good things are just going to happen. And he said, in the history of the world, good things have never just happened. He says, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful. And hope is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hope is the idea that good things are going to happen because we can make them so. I still believe in our country. And I know Charlie Kirk believed in our country. I still believe that there is more good among us than evil. And I still believe that we can change the course of history. I'm hopeful because Americans can make it so. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Governor, can we speak to whether the suspect is speaking with authorities and his demeanor, Tyler Robinson, when he turned himself in?
I cannot speak to that right now.
Governor, how do you interpret the agreements on the case?
Well, I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not, and by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. That's I think that speaks for itself.
Governor, you indicated that he had been communicating.
Please.
Talk about this level of hatred that this person expressed. Beyond that, is there anything in your view that you discovered that may have radicalized or changed him to prompt him to commit such a horrific?
There's nothing more that we can share at this time.
Governor, you indicated that he had been communicating with a friend on Discord about the gun. Do you anticipate any more arrests?
We do not at this time have any information that would lead to any additional arrests.
Do you believe he acted alone?
Yes, but the investigation is ongoing.
Can you detail at all how he came into custody of police and where he is right now?
Yes, so right now, Mr. Robinson has been booked into the Utah County Jail. You heard the president this morning report that he was taken into custody, that his family and a friend helped to deliver him into custody of law enforcement in Washington County. For those of you that don't know where Washington County is, it is the southwesternmost part of the state of Utah. It's about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive from here, where we are right now, and that's where he lived and where they turned him in. Please, I'll go here. I can't share any more than what I've already shared. Yeah. So how we obtained the gun was found here. So I don't have much more details on that. We do know that he drove. We had his car here on campus, and then we had his car going south back to the St. George. It's actually the city of Washington in Washington County.
Is he talking with authorities, and did he discuss a motive?
I'm sorry? We don't have any information that would lead us to believe that. Yes, in fact, it was just released.
Is
yes.
he talking with authorities, and did he discuss a motive?
I can't answer that right now. Yeah, thank you. Over here.
Very eloquently about trying to reunite this country. Do you feel this is a watershed in American history?
I absolutely believe that this is a watershed in American history. Yes. The question is, what kind of watershed? And that chapter remains to be written. Is this the end of a dark chapter in our history, or the beginning of a darker chapter in our history? Look, I mean, if you look at true political assassinations in this country of someone of this stature, this feels a lot like the late 60s. And having one so gruesomely displayed on camera in all of our hands and in all of our pockets, we are not wired as human beings biologically, historically. We have not evolved in a way that we are capable of processing those types of violent imagery. And by the way, we've seen another one with a gruesome stabbing very recently that went viral. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community. That is happening, and it's happening organically right now. I had a friend in a small city in Utah who said, we're getting together, the Republicans and Democrats in my little town are getting together to have a discussion last night, just to find a way to find their better angels. So yes, this could be, I mean, again, you have to go back to JFK to have seen a video live of something like this happening. I wasn't born until 1975, but I know that things were really dark in the late 60s. Sorry to some of you. I know some of you were there. But this is our moment. Do we escalate, or do we find an off-ramp? And again, it's a choice. It's a choice, and every one of us gets to make that choice. Two more questions right here.
Could we clarify that the release of those enhanced images at 8 p.m. the timeline that Director Patel gave us led to the
the arrest at 10 p.m.? Is there a direct connection between those two events?
I cannot comment if there is a direct connection or not, but all I can say is that that through some process, the family came to know that this had happened.
One more thing, Governor. Could you just clarify the clothing issue you mentioned earlier? Was he changing outfits?
Correct. Yes, yes. So, so when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU. Last question here. Yes.
Suspect was freshly taught. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about where, and was he a student here at this university, and is there any history of mental illness?
Yeah. So. I don't have any information on the mental illness part. He was not a student here at UVU. He was living and had lived for a long time with his family in Washington County, in the southernmost part of our state. Thank you, everyone, for your great work in getting this information out. I just say, process-wise, this may be important. I know many of you aren't familiar with the process in Utah. I think it's important that you understand that. Basically, we have 3 days for charging documents to be filed. A CI will be filed. We'll have more information then, more detailed information as those charging documents are filed in preparation for a preliminary hearing. So 3 days. So we would anticipate then that early next week those charging documents will be filed. We will obviously be working. The county attorney will be working very closely with Mr. Kirk's family as those documents and decisions are prepared and made. Thanks, everyone.
All right, you were just listening into the press conference from this morning where government officials and law enforcement officials told us the details of the suspect in custody for the murder of Charlie Kirk. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back to some local news here in the Charlotte area right after this. Stick with us. All right, welcome back. We are going to take it straight out to our Anna King, who is live in Lancaster County. Anna, you got a chance to get behind the scenes of a really interesting story today. I know new metal detector system for the middle and high school there, but this is actually powered by AI. Tell us about that.
Yes, it is powered by AI. So for the past 8 years here in Lancaster County, they have had regular metal detectors. They told me that process of getting all of the students through those metal detectors in the morning took about an hour and a half. And now with these new AI systems, it takes about 45 minutes, or at least it did this morning when they kicked things off. They told me that they're getting all the kinks out of the way, so hopefully they get things working much quicker. But pretty much you go through these AI-powered metal detectors, and they're able to detect anything inside of the backpack. So now students do not have to take everything out of their backpacks like they did previously. So it's just a much quicker and more efficient system. I spoke to officials here in Lancaster County, both at the school and at the school district as well, and they told me that in today's climate, this is more important now than ever. So safety is on the forefront of everyone's mind here.
Yeah, Anna, absolutely. And I think that's really great news to hear that even on the first day of implementation, they've already seen a significant shortening of the time it takes for students to go through. So that is really great news. You mentioned, of course, just the climate overall. This is probably part of a larger push for school safety in Lancaster and across the state. Anything else they're doing that you want to highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually today we got a walkthrough of what this process looks like, which was really exciting. And so we'll be able to see more of that coming up here at 4:30. But they're also implementing a new vape detection system, and also a badge for officials, it seems like, for teachers. That way they can quickly notify if anything goes awry in the classroom. So many new safety implications here in Lancaster County.
All right. Well, Anna, thank you so much for joining us today. And when can we see you with the rest of your story?
Yeah, I'll have more for you coming up here at 4:30 and 5:30.
All right, Anna, thanks for joining us. All right, we're taking it back to the studio now, and we're going to take Jeb, where do you want to go next?
Well, Julie, there's actually a fantastic soccer game gearing up for the Queen City this Saturday. It's going to be beautiful weather for it. We're hosting Inter Miami. Lionel Messi, the GOAT, is coming.
And you know that's serious, because I know who that is.
Yeah, if Julie
knows. That's why I pulled Jeb in.
Who's coming to play, that's how you know it's going to be a great game. So our Danielle Stein, who... talk about goats. That's one of the goats. She actually sat down with Captain Ashley Westwood to break down Charlotte FC's record-breaking season.
Let's take a listen.
All right, Westy, it has been quite an interesting season for you guys. Right now, you're breaking some records right now for leading MLS in your win streaks, and you have 48 goals on the season. But that's not always been the story of this year. But for right now to be hitting your stride at this point in the season, how does that feel?
The team's in a good place.
Yeah.
Everyone knows how difficult May and June was. We knew how difficult it was going to be before when the schedule come out. But we knew with the home games we had towards the back end of the season, we knew we had a chance to put a run together, and we've done that. And the lads have turned up, the fans have turned up, they're stuck with us, and yeah, we're in a real good place. We've hit form at the right time, and hopefully we can get the job done on Saturday. Another win, equal the record for the win streak.
Yeah.
And who knows? We want to go further, and I've said it since I've been here. We want to win trophies for this football club.
Going back to that May and June you just alluded to, that was a tough time. It seemed like, as the captain, we don't always get to talk to you in the wins. It seems like you become the face when it's a loss. But we heard you say things like, we need to be accountable and we need to look ourselves in the mirror. What was your role kind of in the locker room during that time to help maybe this team gain some positive momentum?
It was just to stay. We were actually playing well.
Yeah.
It was just mistakes that was costing us. The gaffer's shouting in the window now and waving, so it just shows the camaraderie we've got this place.
Right.
But no, we knew it was going to be tough. Away games are typically known for being hard to do, and we were Saturday, Wednesday, we were packing our suitcases, getting home late early hours of Thursday morning, so we knew it was going to be tough. But again, we were playing well. It was the mistakes that were costing us, and it was about getting back to basics. We've cut them out, and we've shown what we can do. And during that time, I said our aim is top four, and
yeah.
people laughed at that comment, but I believed what we had in our locker room, and we've shown it, and we need to keep on doing it now.
And Dean himself was saying all season long, you don't want to get too high with the highs or low with the lows. It's a season that's long and things can change. How do you all kind of stay level-headed through that? I'm sure it could be easy to get caught up in these wins and losses, but when you're having a manager like him telling you, hey, don't read too much into it now, we've got a long way to go, does that help?
Yeah, and he's very good at that. Even when we were losing, he would come in the day after, he would be fine. We would talk about it in videos. So when you've got a manager that's like that, that it creates an atmosphere where the lads have to be like it as well. But after the games, people said things. It wasn't just me saying things. It was a squad thing that had their say, and that's the accountability we hold against each other. And I truly believe that's what got us through the sticky patch and set us on our way towards the back end of this season.
Is there one turning point you can think to that maybe, something kind of flips in the locker room or something on the field that kind of started to click all of a sudden that started to have things trend positive?
No, I think obviously we had a few injuries. We missed Nathan Burns, a big loss.
Absolutely.
He's a communicator back there. Having him back helped. But again, it was just, I think it's the home games. When we knew we had a few home games, we know how good we are at home. We know how tough it is to play there for the opponents. So it was about I said it's just stay in touching distance of the playoffs, and we'll put a good run together. And we've done that, and we've propelled ourselves to the top of the league. And now we want to go even further, and we want to go and win this league.
Goal scoring has been something that's been fun for you guys this year. You've been on the assisting end of quite a few as of late. What's been kind of working for you in terms of connecting with guys like Toklamati, for example?
Yeah, and I think Dan coming in, we knew when he took his chance, we knew how good he was, we knew how good he could be, and his runs, the way he attacks the box, the way he attacks the goal is phenomenal, and he's been arguably the turning point for our season.
Yeah.
Dan coming in, and Pep's been linking up with him well. Will's found his feet.
Totally.
I knew he would do. Listen, it's hard to come here and settle in straight away. So he had to settle in. He gave his wife gave birth to the child. He was back to England, back here. So it's tough. But Will's found his feet, and everyone's found form at the right time, and we just need to carry that on now.
In Wilf's case, you were pretty vocal about defending him early on, about maybe how other teams were perceiving him and how they were just playing him pretty tough, and all the fouls on him. It seems like you were doing a really vocal job as the captain and a leader to kind of defend your teammates in that moment.
Yeah, and I've played against Wilf for a number of years.
Sure.
I know what he can do, and like I said, he went back to England for his visa. He went back, his wife gave birth, and then his little baby's living in England. He's living here on his own, so it's tough. So now he's got his family here. He's got used to the league. He's got used to us. It looks like he's enjoying it. We see him day to day. He's got a smile on his face. So, and when Wilf's like that, Wilf's a player that even the top players in the Premier League can't handle. So he's found his feet, and yeah, I knew what he could do. It was about him settling in, and he's showing now how good Wilf is, and we want him here for the foreseeable future.
We've seen a lot of pictures of him smiling, you smiling. Team seems to be in a good spot right now. What is kind of that vibe right now, if you can paint the picture for people that we can't see?
It's a good place to come to work.
Yeah.
And winning breeds that. It's lads turn up, lads are happy, lads want to be in the building with each other. We have a few team events, so yeah, things are good right now. And the stage we're at this season, we want to keep it like that. And listen, who knows how far this team can go.
This weekend's an interesting situation because whenever Miami's playing, that becomes the spectacle, but it's really you guys who are one of the biggest stories in MLS right now. Do you kind of like being maybe looked over a little bit, or kind of being maybe seen as an underdog, even though you're higher on the table than them, and they're going to still be bringing a lot of attention, even though it's, hey, you guys could be tying the league record for a win streak?
Yeah, so this is now the shift in mentality that we have to deal with.
Right.
We're now a team that's expected to go and win. So that's the shift in mentality. That's what we're going to take us to the next level. But yeah, whenever Miami turn up, Messi's in town, and all the others that they've got, so it's a big game, but one we want to show how good we are. I think when we played them at their place, we should have won comfortably. We didn't take our chances, so we know what we can do to them. We know how we can hurt them, but we know what a good team they are, and we need everyone on their A game to go and beat them. But hopefully the fans turn up in the numbers and we put on a good performance.
How do you guys stay grounded knowing that you guys are maybe the hunted? You guys are the team in the league right now that has your stock rising more than anyone else.
That's our team talk before every game. Listen, teams want to stop our record. They want to be the team that stops it. But for us, it's about just keep doing what we're doing, working hard, defending well, and letting our forward players do their little bits of magic, and that's what we've got back to. Lads are confident, and yeah, everyone's working hard for each other, and that's what's got us back on track from May and June. We had a good sit down. Everyone needs to get back to basics, work hard for each other, be a good teammate, which the gaffer always goes on about, and this is where it is now. And like I said, we've got players who can do a lot of damage in this league, and we believe we can go on and do good things.
For you personally, you've been part of this club for a couple of years now. What makes this year's group or this year's style of play different from some of your previous seasons here in Charlotte?
I think last year we had a foundation of being hard to beat. Clean sheets was one of that. But the criticism was we didn't score enough goals. Now we've added Pep, who's had a full pre-season with us.
Yeah.
Obviously we lost Pat, but we've gained Hidan. Hidan's really stepped forward. We've got Leal, Kerwin stepped up as well, and then we've added Wilf. So we've still got the same back four and we've added to the back four. We've got young Jack in as well. So I think we're the most rounded team in this league. When we're not playing well, we can defend well. And then when things are going well, we've got a front four a front 4 or 5 that can go and hurt teams. So this is the best team I think we've had at Charlotte, and hopefully it can get even better.
You only have a couple weeks left in this regular season before playoffs. Last year, when you think back to that time, obviously it was tough the way things ended, but how hungry does that make you to want to get back to that point?
Yeah, and we saw what it did for the city when we beat Miami to clinch that playoffs place. And what happened at Orlando, that hurt us. That really hurt us. So we've got a mentality now we want to go and do things for this city. This city deserves it. They've bought into the soccer. They've bought into the football club, and the amount of people that turn up week in, week out. Even when you walk in the streets, you see Charlotte shirts everywhere.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's time for us to pay back, and we want to do this city proud. This amazing city. Amazing fan base, an amazing club. So we carry this shirt, and yeah, we've got a group in there that want to go and win things for this football club in this city.
All right, that was our Danielle Stein with her one-on-one with Ashley Westwood, captain of Charlotte FC, talking about their potential record-breaking season. We're going to get to some more local headlines right after a short break. Stick with us. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. I'm Julie Kay here. Time check, it is 2:22 in the afternoon. We've been following a lot of big stories so far this afternoon. One of the biggest, though, is, of course, here in Charlotte, the murder of Irina Zarutska. And in the week since, of course, the aftermath, locally and nationally, about how did this happen and how did DeCarlos Brown get out of jail? How will this be solved by the city and state and potentially federal officials going forward? How can people feel safe on the light rail? A lot of these questions are what Republican lawmakers tried to answer yesterday at a press conference in Raleigh. We were actually there and got to witness it as they talked about potential legislation. So General Assembly is going to come back in a couple weeks, and they said you can expect a package of bills focused on what happened to Irina Zarutska and preventing that from happening in the future. So take a listen to this press conference.
Had mental health issues, had multiple interactions with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, and somehow was allowed to walk out of the jail by a magistrate by simply signing a written promise to appear. Again, when all those facts were known, or certainly should have been known at the time. And so we've got to get to the bottom of how it happened in this case, and we're looking at a number of possible legislative actions to take, reforming various issues with our magistrates, with pretrial conditions of release, which we'll talk about more in just a moment. But I'll also say again, it's a solemn day for us. Many of the folks who work in this building actually knew Charlie Kirk, and a lot of the folks who, a lot of staff members, frankly, actually literally worked for him in the past, knew him personally, and so he was an incredible advocate for the conservative cause, and what we saw in Utah is really something that should never happen in this country. And it's the same thing for the Charlotte murder. That's not the kind of thing that should happen in this country, and especially cannot happen in North Carolina. So I can tell you that we at the General Assembly, we're going to take all action that we need to prevent those things in the future. So I'm going to turn this over now to Chairman Whatley, and I'll come back up in a moment and answer some questions about our proposed legislation.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we think about Charlie Kirk and his loss, which was just yesterday, what comes to my mind was a quote from 2 Timothy 4:7. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And in Charlie's case, that was certainly true. And so, yes, this is a tough day because of what happened 24 years ago, because of what happened in North Carolina in the last several weeks, and because of what happened 24 hours ago in Utah. This is the kind of conversation that we should not have to have in this country or here in North Carolina. But having this tough conversation and speaking these hard truths is the perfect way to honor the legacy of someone like Charlie, so we will. Families are hurting right now because of this series of attacks. And as we speak these hard truths, we must be clear about the cause, the rhetoric and soft-on-crime policies of the left. Let's take the rhetoric first. President Trump was spot on about what leads to a culture like this one. When folks on the left seek to dehumanize those they disagree with, they use words like fascist and Nazi, and they call for violence. That's what leads to deranged people doing cowardly and evil acts. The most fundamental obligation and responsibility of any government is keeping its citizens safe. We need leaders at every level to acknowledge that there is a crime crisis here in North Carolina and across the country brought about by the left's soft-on-crime policies, which affect the safety of every community and every family across our great state. Roy Cooper has a history of being soft on crime. He let 3,500 criminals free. And the killer who killed young Irina, he was released just 3 months after one of Cooper's soft on crime executive orders in 2020 and 13 additional times after he was arrested. DeCarlos Brown Jr. is a career criminal who was arrested 14 times. when Cooper was governor and when he was our state's top law enforcement officer as Attorney General. What has transpired over these days and weeks is becoming a clear attack on our next generation. One high-profile victim and one making her own way in America, both killed in the prime of their lives because of the rhetoric, one because of soft crime on policies. The left loves to say the thoughts and prayers aren't enough. So let me call them to action. It's time for leaders in their party to call out the hateful rhetoric that is leading to this violence. And it is time for them to take a look in the mirror and realize their soft on crime policies are killing our young people, our future, and destroying families. Our elected officials must rescind the Cooper policies which allowed attacks like that on Arena, and ensure that this and any criminal feels the wrath of justice and is not allowed to walk the streets free again. I am here to offer my support to these men, to the legislative leadership who is committing to do that today. I'm here to encourage them. Don't back down. Don't relent. Don't be deterred by the hate. It's time to take our country back and dismantle the radical left machine which puts us in this position. And it's time to do it today. That's how we will honor the memory of these young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Watley. Irina Zarutska should still be alive today. But her life was tragically cut short because of the atrocious policies pushed by out-of-touch politicians and court officials that prioritize a perverted vision or version of equity and politicized social justice over real and tangible justice. The hardworking men and women in law enforcement go after and catch violent criminals. But all too often, as soon as the criminals are brought before a magistrate or a judge, their efforts to keep our communities safe go down the drain. We cannot stand by while our cities are held hostage by soft-on-crime policies. We must stop the ongoing violence from overtaking our state and our country. Yesterday's assassination of Charlie Kirk is the latest in a string of political violence that also calls us to act. Last year, there were horrific assassination attempts carried out on President Trump. Earlier this summer, there was an assassination of former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the shooting of Minnesota Senator John Hoffman and his wife.
All right, you've been listening to a press conference yesterday from Senate and House leaders at the North Carolina General Assembly. Republican lawmakers announcing potential legislation that will be announced later this month following the stabbing of Irina Zarutska. So we're going to keep following that as we get some more information and come back to that press conference later. But for now, let's get to some stories closer to home. I know that anyone who's driven through Charlotte has seen probably about 1 million new apartments going up. That's why our Walker Lawson has been looking into that. Walker, we got a new report in the past couple of days from Rent Cafe. What did it say?
Yeah, well, they really break down what you said. So many people moving here and so much construction for new apartments. So what I thought was interesting is Charlotte actually ranks number 2 for most apartments in 2025, trailing behind Austin, Texas. Of course, another great city people want to move to. But it's really interesting when you look at just how many people are moving here. The report says that looking at new apartments being built, there's around 16,995 units, and that is more than Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, Asheville, and Wilmington combined.
Wow.
So you're looking at all these different areas. People clearly want to move to Charlotte and call this area home.
So what did you talk to, I know you talked to some residents, you talked to some experts. What did they say about this? Is this a trend that's expected to continue?
Yeah, well, we spoke to the director at the Childress Klein Center for Real Estate at UNC Charlotte, and he said, you know, obviously all of these apartments are coming because there is a demand here, so people are continuing to move to the city. You know, we got those new numbers earlier this year that more people are moving here than previous numbers that we had a day. So they said the demand as of now is still continuing, but they expect by 2026, 2027, this will eventually slow down down and that we won't see as many apartments being built. That will remain to be seen. Of course, we've heard experts say that in years past. So we'll see, but as of now, they expect in the next couple of years, once that demand slows down, you'll start to see less apartments being built.
I know we've covered multiple times now different areas of Charlotte that have boomed. In particular, it's interesting to get a report that's so widespread across the city.
Yeah, right behind Charlotte was Mooresville, so not too far behind.
Oh, actually.
Yeah. Very interesting. One of the things I saw in the report. So you have a lot of people wanting to come here.
Anything residents said about their reaction to all this?
No shock to anyone.
Yeah.
Construction all over the place. You and I talk about it. We see it everywhere we go. We're always excited for new things popping up, but the city continues to grow.
It'll be interesting to see if it actually slows down like people expect.
Right, we'll see.
All right, Walker, thank you. He'll have that story later today. What time?
6:15.
At 6:15.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, but we'll come back with some more of your local headlines after this. All right, we are coming back on Live Impact News with some breaking news out of Chicago. Earlier, we brought you that scene at an immigration facility with troops. We now know a person was killed and an ICE agent was injured on Friday after that dramatic scene that we brought to you live here on Live Impact News. We are just learning this information as we go. I'm pulling this from our NBC affiliate in Chicago, so I'm going to read you some more of the information that we have. They're calling this a targeted law enforcement activity in Franklin Park, leading to street closures and school lockdowns. According to a statement emailed to NBC Chicago by an Immigration Customs Enforcement spokesperson, officers attempted to stop a vehicle, but the suspect resisted. The suspect then attempted to drive the car into the arrest team, striking an agent and subsequently dragging him as he fled the scene. Spokesperson said the agent was fearing for his life and discharged a weapon. This, as I mentioned, coming just about an hour after we had that instance at an ICE facility just outside of Chicago, where protesters were accusing ICE agents of just doing this very thing. So this, of course, going to continue the tensions in Chicago, and we're going to keep following this as we get more information. Again, as I said, this is just coming into our newsroom just now. We do know the agent that sustained injuries. They are severe, but that agent is listed in stable condition. Some good news there. So we're going to see if we get some more information from officials in Chicago as the afternoon goes on, and hopefully some live pictures from our Chicago affiliate there. We're going to continue to follow that and also go to what's happening out of Utah, the Charlie Kirk murder. We're getting some more press conferences there from the Utah Bridge Builders. That is an organization that works with Democrats and Republicans to bridge the gap there and hopefully calm down some of the rhetoric. I believe we have a press conference live now. Let's take a listen.
Of that pain that Zach and I are both here today, and it's because of that pain that we are here at a unique event, relatively unique because Zach and I are often on different pages with some things, maybe most things, but we're here today because right now we could not be in greater agreement if we tried. Whether you are a young Republican, a young Democrat, or you couldn't care less about politics, every single one of us has a fundamental right to share ideas and engage with our peers free from violence. Plain and simple. That is the promise of free speech, and that is the promise that we as Americans have. The brutal attack that we witnessed this week wasn't just an attack on a man and a family, though it was. It was also an attack on that fundamental right of free speech that we enjoy, and that lets each of us engage in our communities in the way that we wish to. To the young Utahns who are watching this, who are looking around and trying to understand what's next, you're not alone. I hope you recognize that the answer to that question starts and ends with us. We are the next generation of leaders. In many cases, we're the current generation of leaders. And the choice about what our politics will look like in the future is ours to make. That's our responsibility. And so the challenge that I would give to every young Utahn today is to make the personal promise in your heart that you will reject violence as a way to accomplish what you want, plain and simple. Political violence is a corrosive evil that we cannot allow in our state. It cannot take root here because that is the destruction of the political system that we know and love. So I am excited to work with Zach. I'm excited to work with everyone in this room to see what we can do to bring our community together to defend that fundamental right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be among this group of people and among you. I want to acknowledge first that as Americans, we're pretty good at coming together after a tragedy. 24 years ago yesterday was 9/11, and the day after today, September 12th, 24 years ago, we're pretty good about coming together. What I think we're not as good at is coming together to prevent these types of tragedies. And that's why we're here, and that's why the work of my colleagues is so important. And the work that we've been doing for some time is to come together in a different way to prevent this type of horrific act. This morning I had a call from a reporter at a national magazine, and she sensed that something was different about the response. She said, "What is it about Utah? It just feels different. Your governor's words feel different. This response feels different." And in Utah, we've had a lot of opportunities to come together. Natural disasters, fires, and floods, and even COVID brought us together for a time. But it is a little bit different. And I said, I don't know exactly what to tell you. I feel like it's in our DNA that we want to work together. We want to make our communities and our state a better place. And by extension, we want to make the country a better place. Many of the organizations up here represent national organizations that are doing work nationally, not just in Utah. So I appreciate being in this group. My work is involved with the Dignity Index, which is a tool that we've created. Don't worry, I'm going to make you take a handout before you leave today. Looking at the language that we use in moments of disagreement. How do we talk about each other? How do we talk to each other when we disagree? As so eloquently stated by these young individuals in front of me. This is our work, is to find a way to do that so we prevent these types of occurrences. So I want to leave you with 3 takeaways from my heart and from our work. We're asking people to first turn inward, turn towards yourself. We check ourselves first. That's one of the goals of the Dignity Index, is to give you a guideline so that you can check yourself first before we blame some other nameless, faceless group. We check ourselves. How am I reacting? What does my language look like? What am I posting or reposting on social media? What am I telling my children? So first we ask people to turn inward. The second thing that I'm going to ask is that you turn outward, that you check on people. Check on your neighbors, check on your friends, check on someone who maybe shares a different ideology than you do. See how they are. Check on young people. This is a very difficult time, especially for young people, and I feel the need a lot of times to apologize for the country politically that we are leaving the next generation. So check outwardly on people. And then the third thing, after we've turned inward and we've turned outward, we invite you to turn toward us, which is different than turning outward. Is turning towards us together. What can we accomplish together? On our dignity index, if you get to a level 6, which is on the dignity side of the scale, that's where you're finding common ground. I believe this, you believe this, great, we can do this together. At a 7, it's when you're not looking for common ground, you're looking for higher ground. I disagree with you on this, and I disagree on that. And how can I learn from you so that we can solve problems together? That's turning toward us. So thank you for being together. Together, we are building a different kind of community. Utah can lead the way and show what it can be like when we turn inward, when we turn outward, and when we turn toward us. Thank you.
The violence at Utah Valley University this week was a sobering reminder how important it is to safeguard our democracy. At their best, our democratic institutions protect the freedoms that define our country and define us: the freedom of expression, the right to peaceful debate, and the ability to disagree without fear. These institutions are not abstract. They are the rules, traditions, and safeguards that make it possible for neighbors with very different viewpoints to live, work, and thrive side by side. And when violence enters the picture, it threatens not just individuals, but the very fabric of our shared civic life. In this moment, we must reject retaliation and partisan blame. What our communities need, and what Governor Cox has rightly called us to, is leadership marked by dignity and restraint. That means reflecting before reacting, listening before speaking, and treating even our opponents with respect. Here in Utah, we have an example worth lifting up. Across party lines, leaders are showing that civil discourse is possible and that politics doesn't have to be toxic to be effective. Here in Utah, leaders and communities came together during my service in the legislature on complex issues of immigration, LGBTQ rights, and climate, not because they always agreed, but because they chose to engage with respect, modeling accountability and principled dialogue with a focus on finding a solution. That spirit of civil discourse across party lines is something rare in our national climate, and Utah has the power to be a model of civility in action for our nation. In the aftermath of this week, then, the responsibility to move ahead with intention and purpose is now on all of us. Every respectful conversation at a town hall or around a dinner table is a step toward rebuilding trust in each other, our institutions, and our democracy. Coalitions like this that bring us together and bring diverse voices are where the best solutions begin. But that requires ongoing effort. And we call on elected officials and civic leaders to continue to create safe spaces for dialogue and problem solving. Spaces where people of every background and belief can participate without fear, and where differences are not a threat, but an opportunity to learn and then lead. This is the vision and the foundation of the governing group. Our work supporting candidates across the state is focused on building bridges, fostering dignity in public life, and showing that a commitment to respect, community, and solutions is not weakness, but power. When we reflect before we act, we choose better and we govern better. And we open the doors for other people to step forward with hope instead of fear. In fact, these are the very qualities voters are hungry for. And when candidates have the tools to run strong campaigns with authenticity and dignity, without resorting to negativity, they succeed. The path forward includes creating a culture and support system where leaders and candidates can win by focusing on substance, respect, and listening. We need to find and support leaders at the local level who are modeling civility now, because they will become tomorrow's state and national leaders. And there's room for everyone in this work. Communities can reward leaders who choose collaboration over conflict. Citizens can insist that candidates win on ideas, not on outrage. And together, we can change the incentives and the very structure of politics in this state, and we can do it from the ground up. Let's reflect before we act. Let's lead with dignity, and let's show, starting here in Utah, that civility is not a weakness. It is the very strength that protects both our communities and our democracy.
My name is Ashley Bell. You know, I would have never thought I would be in Utah at a moment like this. I'm from Gainesville, Georgia, but it is very apropos for my life. You know, I started as a college kid getting involved in politics, and I was actually the national president of the College Democrats of America. And my first time ever meeting anybody from Utah was the president of the College Democrats of Utah. And it was a young guy named Aaron Thompson who ended up being a dear friend. And I haven't seen him in years, and I'm going to see him for the first time tomorrow. Largely because of this, us reconnecting in these moments. But my career starts off there, and then full circle, some 20 years later, I meet Charlie Kirk working in the White House and working for President Trump. What an arc of life. What an arc of life. And what a time to be able to say that over that arc of traveling and learning and becoming a more dynamic human, that I was able to meet my friends where they were. Never always agreeing on everything, but still remembering we're friends. And even though my career ended politically, working as a Republican, that my dear College Democrat friend from Utah is going to come visit me tomorrow at a bank that I started. This is the first African-American bank in the Rockies. That doesn't happen by chance. You don't come to a place like this unless there's really good people who are really open to things that may be different than they've seen every day. You know, we bought Holiday Bank and Trust because my co-founder, who's the youngest daughter of Martin Luther King Jr., said that this was the place where something like that could happen, and probably the only place in America. It was the only place where people from a different background could look and find that it's the best place for business, led by great people like Governor Cox, who provide opportunities like this for us to be together and gather in brotherhood and sisterhood. To say that, you know what, if there's one place in America where people of color could go and purchase a bank and be successful, it's probably Utah. And what a moment for us to be cutting our ribbon and opening our bank 2 days ago. We were expecting to have Governor Cox speak and get the news of what happened to my friend Charlie. It's never easy to know someone with so much life and think of something like that happening to him. And it was a moment where I'm looking at Dr. King and I'm saying, there's no one in this world who knows loss like this like you. There's no one in this world who knows what it's like to have a father assassinated, her grandmother assassinated, her uncle assassinated. And to have my son sit in the front row and I have to explain to him that something like this that he thought was lost to the ages, something that would happen in a world like this. But to have her come to the microphone and be able to say, having dealt with loss like this, to still call on the better angels of America, to be able to remind us what her father said so eloquently, that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. That hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And what you've heard in so many different ways today is just that. If we're going to find a way to eradicate the darkness, we all have to carry a little bit brighter light when we leave here. If we're going to find a way of getting rid of hate, we're going to have to find a little bit more love when we leave here. And meet people where they are, understanding that we don't have to agree on everything, but what we can agree on is that we all deserve to reap the bounties of living in the greatest country in the world that is founded on freedom of speech. And that.
All right, you've been listening into a conference to bring Republicans and Democrats together in Utah and kind of bridge some of that rhetoric. That's what's going on there. We're going to take a quick break and come back to some of your headlines right after this. Stick with us. All right, coming back on Live Impact News, time check, it is 2:54. We're following some breaking news out of Memphis. President Donald Trump said today he's going to send the National Guard there as well. That's now multiple cities. He has said the National Guard needs to respond for all sorts of concerns, mainly crime. But this, of course, being a larger conversation about military force now spreading across multiple American cities. So we're actually going to take it to our news partners out in Memphis and check in with their coverage, see what they are doing right now and what they say live from the scene. Let's take a listen.
National Guard's impact up close.
They haven't been doing much, I have to say, since they've been here, aside from patrolling some high traffic areas. They've been focused on a lot of beautification efforts recently, which includes replanting grass. They may be washing away graffiti, picking up trash, things of that sort.
Hall says the Guard's presence hasn't eliminated violence.
We've had 7 murders. We've still had a few carjackings. We've had a few robberies since then. So people are still out committing crimes. And I know that some people do feel safe with the National Guard's presence, but some folks don't believe this is the approach to reducing crime in D.C.
Hall also notes that Memphis's experience would be completely different than in Washington, D.C., with the Guards needing to answer to federal orders because there is no governor, whereas in Memphis, deployment would need direction and approval from Governor Lee.
It depends on what the order is, what the governor says they're going to do. Are you going to help the police department? Are you going to go into neighborhoods and stand watch? Are you going to stand in some high crime areas? It really just depends.
In D.C., Hall says people see the Guard occasionally, but many residents still don't want them here.
You see them occasionally, but it hasn't been overly intrusive. But people just don't want to see the National Guard at all.
City leaders say any deployment here would have to be carefully coordinated to make sure the Guard doesn't overtake the core police duties.
All right, so bringing it back here to Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee says he's been working with President Trump for months on a plan to tackle crime in Memphis. And this move wouldn't happen without his support. So That begs the question, what's next? Governor Lee released a statement answering that it will include the FBI, state troopers, and Memphis police. Lee says he'll speak directly with the president this afternoon to work out the details. Local lawmakers are also weighing in on the deployment plan. Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen shared his thoughts while at the Memphis airport discussing upcoming upgrades.
The president referred to Memphis as a troubled city. I've never thought of Memphis as a troubled city. It's a great city. It's America's distribution hub. It's barbecue and blues. I don't want to lose Memphis's identity in the world as being a city that people want to visit and know is a historic city of significance and happens to be thought of as a troubled city.
Now, Congressman Cohen says the best way to fight crime in the Bluff City is by boosting mental health resources, hiring more officers, and expanding community policing. Now, Republican State Senator Brent Taylor, who, and as we have right here, political analyst Otis Sanford, sitting standby because we are going to pick your brain about all of this, as we always do. Let me get back to the Republican State Senator Brent Taylor, who supports the Memphis troop deployment, posting on X today that the National Guard could provide administrative and logistical support to law enforcement, letting local officers focus on policing. He also recently asked the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to audit the Memphis Police Department's crime reporting. Then we'll turn it to now Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, who's also running for governor, also thanked President Trump, saying on social media that it's time to crack down on what she calls, quote, soft on crime agendas. Now, Representative David Kustoff, who represents Tennessee's 8th District, is also backing the decision. He says it's important for Memphis to work with the White House to secure crucial resources. We're going to take a live look now at where Mayor Paul Young is expected to take the podium and give his latest thoughts. So we see that they're all gathered there, and as soon as we see him taking the podium, we will take this shot full. So there he is right now. Looks like he's greeting the crowd. We're going to take notes here, and we're going to have a fully dissected discussion after the fact. But as you know, Otis, President Trump said that Mayor Young was happy about this, so he'll definitely have to address that as well. Let's go ahead and listen in if we can. It seems like he's about to start. Okay, he is not talking yet. As you can see, he's probably getting his notes ready. Yeah. So yes, the reaction to the mayor is happy hearing that from President Trump. How do you think he's going to have to answer to that?
Well, we'll see if he says he's happy. There are a lot of people in the community and some people who have been advisors of his who have told him, you need to address that, whether you are happy or not. I know that County Mayor Lee Harris was not happy. And of course, as the county mayor, he is the mayor of Memphis and Shelby County because he represents the entire county. And he was very forceful in his statements. So we'll have to see how Mayor Young addresses this, whether he is diplomatic as he has been so far. He has not wanted to alienate the governor or the president, and so we'll see how he responds to this. But there are a lot of people who are not happy with this. We'll see how the mayor responds.
You are absolutely right. Now, my producer is telling me that we're about a minute or two out. You can see Mayor Young is at the podium there. Are we ready to take this shot now? All right, let's listen in.
Of Memphis that is standing here in solidarity. There are people from all different backgrounds. There's elected officials. I want to thank Representative Cohen for being here, Representative Parkinson, City Councilman Ford. I see the chair of the County Commission is here, Shantae Avant, as well as Mikhail Lowry from the County Commission. We have business leaders, clergy, community members. We're all standing in solidarity for Memphis. And I know we have a lot of press here. This press conference will probably get broadcast in a lot of different places. And as the eyes of the world are on Memphis, I want the world to know that Memphis stands together. This morning, we learned that the president and the governor are looking to bring federal resources to our city, which include the National Guard, which they have the authority to do. I want to be clear, I did not ask for the National Guard, and I don't think it's the way to drive down crime. However, that decision has been made. And as mayor of the city that I love, of Memphis, Tennessee, my commitment is to make sure that we work strategically to ensure that this happens in a way that truly benefits and strengthens our community. I want to note that we have been making progress as a city on reducing crime. 13% overall reduction in crime in 2024, 19% reduction in violent crime, 29% reduction in murders, 37% reduction in car thefts, and that's in 2024. And on 2025, we're on pace to beat those numbers. We've been executing a very deliberate strategy, one that focuses on identifying the most violent individuals and groups in the city, and we've seen success. We've invested in a citywide camera network that provides the technology that allows us to capture criminals more quickly. We've recently had a successful FBI initiative in partnership with MPD that has produced significant results. And because of the work and the tireless efforts of our law enforcement, we're seeing double-digit percentage reductions in crime across the board, and I believe that what we should do is double down on those strategies that we know work. I think it's important that I say here as mayor that we know the work is not done. Our city is still far too high on too many of the bad lists, and we're committed to putting in the work to making sure that we do just that. I want to speak to the reality that far too many Memphians feel. Just over the past couple of weeks, we had a beautiful 901 Day celebration, our only holiday, the only holiday that we celebrate. No other place in the country, 901 Day. Beautiful celebration. The event was scarred at the end of the night, after everything was over, because we had teenagers that had a shootout. We had a home in Hickory Hill where 4 residents were shot in their own home. I had an event last night, just last night, where I was walking through a festival, and there was a daughter that chased me down to hand me a letter that her mama had typed for her to give to me and put in my hand, where she talked about her son that passed away in 2018, and she's still looking for answers. So the pain of violence, we feel it. We know it all too well. To me, this is not about politics. This is not a political stunt for anybody up here. We're talking about real lives. So despite the reductions that we've seen, the crime is still too high and there's still too many victims. That said, we're going to continue to be laser focused on what it takes to reduce crime in our city. We know the National Guard is coming. My plan is to make sure that as mayor, I'm able to work with this community, with the governor, with the federal government, to ensure that the support that is provided supports the initiatives that we know work and not distract from our law enforcement efforts. There are questions that you all have that I'm not going to be able to give you an answer to today, but my team and I will be discussing those questions with the governor and the federal government. When will they come? How many people are going to come? How long will they be here? What are they going to wear? Where are they going to be geographically in the city? What assignments will they have? Those are all questions that we have and that we are going to work through together as a community. And the group that you see here today, as I mentioned earlier, it represents a diverse range of Memphians. I can tell you that there are some that support it and some that don't. But we're all right here together today. Because one thing we do have in common is a love for this city. And I want to close with this, and then I'll open it up for questions. Let me say my ultimate goal after this short-term presence of individuals coming to the city, my ultimate goal is to make sure that we get a long-term partnership and commitment with the state, with the federal government, community partners, that we are going to address the root causes of violent crime, that we're going to be able to access resources for outreach and rehabilitation for people who may have already made bad decisions in their lives, that we're going to invest in the programs that truly address the trauma and much needed mental health services that are needed in our community, that we're going to invest in building a workforce and a pipeline where we're training young people for the trades and the jobs of the future and the ones that they can access quickly, where we're stabilizing communities by investing in housing and small business corridors throughout the city of Memphis. And most importantly, that we all remain committed to raising the level of hope in the hearts of the people that live in this community. Hope is about a clear image of the future and a true belief that that image can be achieved. And for far too many, that hope has been gone. And my goal as mayor is to make sure that all of the things that we do are all centered around elevating that hope. And let me lastly say that Memphis is a special city. It's a special place. We're different. We're already doing the work. And now the world is going to get an opportunity to watch us succeed. All right, thank you. I'll open it up for questions. I will say that I'm probably going to field the questions for now, and then we have a host of people that are here, elected officials. Certainly will allow each of you to be able to pull them to the side as we go, but for the sake of time, I think it's best that I field the questions for now.
And we are going to ask that you announce your name and your outlet before you ask any questions.
Yes.
Mayor Young, Martin Stone, Fox 13 News. My question is for the people out there. Mayor Harris just had a news conference this morning. She said he's a little fearful. For the Memphians out there who are fearful, what's your advice if they get pulled over by the National Guard once they've established their presence here?
Well, I think Mayor Harris probably reflects the concerns of many individuals. And as I mentioned earlier, there are questions that we don't have answers for yet. I don't think the National Guard will be pulling people over. But those are things that we are going to have direct conversations about in the days and weeks to come. I think it's important to note that in terms of timing, this is not happening tomorrow. We have some time to talk through some of those issues and questions, and I expect that we will have a long list of questions that we want to get answered from this community as we have those dialogues.
Ezekiel Telemaco with ABC 24. President Trump this morning on Fox and Friends said that you were happy about this. Would you say that that statement is accurate?
Yeah, that was an overstatement. I am focused on the resources. FBI, DEA, ATF, those are the things that I believe will truly help us be able to support law enforcement and reduce violent crime. I do not support the National Guard. However, they are coming. It's not the mayor's call. The mayor doesn't have a say or the authority to stop them from coming. And so my goal is to make sure that as they come, that I have an opportunity to work with them to strategize on how they engage in this community.
Mayor Young, Brian Didley, WRIG, quick question. In terms of what the city can or cannot say in the capacity which will see the National Guard, what does the city have? What power do we have to say in what capacity we see the National Guard?
I mean, I think I just answered that. We don't have a say in the National Guard, but our goal is to ensure that we have influence in how they engage in this community. I've spoken with the governor on numerous occasions, and he's been very, very open to that collaboration, as well as the federal government. So we look to have some influence on how they engage.
Mayor Young, Sam Harden with the Daily Memphian. Right now, in the city charter, you and Police Chief Davis are the chief law enforcement officers essentially in the city. Would that change with the National Guard arrives?
No, that does not change.
And so would they essentially be under command and control of the police department?
There will be a lot of coordination, and obviously this is something we're all new to, so we're going to be learning, working with our attorneys, but Chief Davis will remain the chief of police and continue to drive law enforcement in the city of Memphis.
Mayor Young, Imani Williams with Channel 5. In previous cities where we have seen the National Guard come in, they have been focused more in a downtown area. Here in Memphis, it's pretty large, and some Memphians are wondering if they will see people in North Memphis, South Memphis, Fraser, Raleigh, or will we just see them downtown where that's not one of the focus areas previously stated by MPD. So do you expect to see National Guard in other places other than downtown?
Again, that's one of the questions that we have. We want to make sure that it's geographically diverse. The areas that would be covered and how they cover them is still a question, but we don't know the answer to that right now.
Mayor Young, Lee Smith, Tri-State Defender. Memphis not the first city to have the administration decide they want to bring troops in. What are, we'll just say, some of the best practices or what you have learned from how other cities have handled this?
Well, I've had conversation with Mayor Bowser in D.C., and she has developed a working relationship with the team that is there. And our goal is to make sure that we have a working relationship with whatever team comes to this city so that we can align their efforts with the efforts of our law enforcement.
Mayor Young, I got a statement from the MPD Police Officers Union, and I asked what they thought about this. And the statement says that roughly they're down almost 500 officers, and they welcome the help. What do you say to that?
I would say that any opportunities for us to use the National Guard to supplement our law enforcement efforts is what we will look towards.
All right, thank you very much.
Well, again, there are a lot of people here, so I know you probably have additional questions. Please do talk to some of the other individuals and elected officials that are here, and thank you all for being here today. More information to come.
All right, you just listened to the end of that press conference. We took that live from Memphis after President Trump announced that the National Guard, some troops will be headed to Memphis to address crime there. So that was a press conference with city leaders, hoping to get more information, it sounds like, from the administration on what that will look like. We are awaiting a press conference closer to home here with Governor Josh Stein about increased access to COVID-19 vaccines. Of course, there have been some restrictions as of late. That is coming up around 3:15, so we're going to take a short break and have that for you hopefully as soon as we get back. Out from your break here, it is 3:16. I'm Julie Kay. We're still waiting for that press conference. It's a virtual press conference with Governor Josh Stein about increased access to COVID-19 vaccines. We're going to take that to you as soon as that gets going. We have that up here. But first, let's head back to Memphis while we wait. I know the Memphis police is speaking right after Trump announced that he's planning to send the National Guard there.
With it, then we're going to be as strategic as we can be about it. We want to make sure that our community members understand and are clearly understood that the Memphis Police Department is the primary public safety agency in the city of Memphis. And we work really closely with the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. If there's an opportunity for more resources to be in our city, what we have to do is make an assessment as to what would their role be. So we will be communicating very closely with the National Guard, to really talk about, what is the plan, the numbers, and someone mentioned, what does that presence look like? What communities, will be affected the most? And how do our officers continue to do the work that they have to do every day without this being a distraction?
I do have a question about, you said more law enforcement. We've seen more THP troopers.
Yes.
What is their role here in Memphis and Shelby County right now?
Absolutely. I think we're in a really, really a good place in the city of Memphis. A few years ago, we didn't have as much presence of THP, or federal sort of support that we do right now. And now that we have that level of support, we all have been able to see a change and a shift on our streets, on our highways, in just enforcement in general, and focusing on violent criminals, working with our...
All right, this is the first that we were hearing from the Memphis police after Trump announced the National Guard is headed there. But we do have that Governor Stein press conference. It looks like it's getting started. That is about the COVID-19 vaccines. Let's take a listen, see if it's getting started.
Thank all of you for joining us today as we take action to protect public health in North Carolina. As temperatures drop and with fall right around the corner, it's the time of year when many people want to take action to protect themselves from viruses. However, there's a lot of uncertainty right now about who can get the COVID-19 vaccine and who will be able to afford it. If you do not want a COVID vaccine, don't get one. But if you want a COVID vaccine and the FDA recommends, you should be able to get it. Right now, North Carolina is one of only a handful of states where people must get a prescription before they can get a shot at the pharmacy. This is unnecessary red tape, and it's time for North Carolina to get in line with other states across the country. That's why I am taking action to protect COVID-19 vaccine access for North Carolinians who'd like to get it, just like Virginia did 2 days ago. I've directed DHHS State Health Director, Dr. Larry Greenblatt, to issue standing orders if he agreed in his medical judgment. Dr. Greenblatt has issued these orders, which allows pharmacies statewide to provide COVID-19 vaccines to senior citizens, as well as adults over 18 who meet the CDC's list of high-risk conditions, without having to get a patient-specific prescription. The Food and Drug Administration approved the next round of COVID-19 vaccines in late August, and the standing order aligns with those federal recommendations. These actions will help protect healthcare access for people all across North Carolina. Again, this is about choice. It is not a mandate. We want you to have options to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your neighbors. Vaccines are one of the most effective tools we have to prevent serious illness, hospitalization, and death from COVID-19. They help protect not only the beneficiary, but everyone from the spread of infectious diseases. I encourage people to talk with their healthcare provider about the benefits of vaccines, as well as any concerns they may have. This season, let's stay healthy and let's keep our friends and family healthy too. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Secretary Dr. Sangbai.
Thank you, Governor, for those opening remarks and for your leadership as we work together to make North Carolina healthier and stronger. The order issued today will serve as a COVID-19 vaccine prescription for people who choose to get the vaccine and who are 65 and older, and adults 18 to 64 who have certain health conditions that put them at high risk. I know there's been a lot of confusion among people looking to get the vaccine in the recent weeks, and this order should help make things easier for adults who want to get the COVID-19 vaccine. The order is necessary this year because, as you've just heard, per state law, immunizing pharmacists in North Carolina are only permitted to administer vaccines the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP, recommends. However, this year, ACIP has not given its recommendations for COVID-19. Without these recommendations, and prior to the standing order, pharmacists could only administer the vaccine with a prescription from a provider. Requiring an office visit to obtain a prescription to receive the vaccine at this critical access point is an unnecessary barrier to the health and well-being of North Carolinians. We know that 70% of people in North Carolina receive their COVID-19 vaccines at a pharmacy. Vaccinations against seasonal respiratory viruses, including flu, RSV, and COVID-19, are especially important for people who are at higher risk of severe viral respiratory disease. Vaccines are one of the most effective means available to prevent serious illness, hospitalization, and death. They help protect the health of children and adults, their families, and the entire community from the spread of infectious disease. I'm going to now turn things over to Dr. Larry Greenblatt, our State Health Director and Chief Medical Officer, who will talk specifically about the orders he just signed. Dr. Greenblatt?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Secretary Sangbai and Governor Stein. The order signed today will go into effect immediately, so people who want a COVID-19 vaccine and fall within one of the approved categories recommended by the FDA and CDC can get their vaccines this weekend if they choose. The order stands in place of a prescription for people who are 65 and older, and also for adults 18 and older who have at least one high-risk condition. The list of high-risk conditions is very broad and includes obesity, asthma, diabetes, physical inactivity, depression, former or current smoking, and pregnancy, among many others. ACIP recommendations are expected later this September, and federal guidance may continue to evolve. As this happens, North Carolina will do everything it can to ensure people have access to safe and affordable COVID-19 vaccines. This new standing order is part of our ongoing effort to make COVID-19 vaccines more accessible and help protect North Carolinians, especially as we enter the fall and winter virus season. Individuals, including parents, should talk to their healthcare provider or their children's healthcare provider about the benefits and any concerns they have regarding seasonal vaccines, including the COVID-19 vaccine. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Kelly Kimple, Director of the Division of Public Health.
Thank you, Dr. Greenblatt. The directive and standing order will help make it easier for people to get a COVID-19 vaccine if they want one. It also makes it easier for pharmacies and retailers. If you want to go to a pharmacy to get your COVID-19 vaccine, there are a couple things you may want to be aware of. Most pharmacies already have the updated COVID-19 vaccine available for the season. But since the seasonal vaccine formulations were recently approved by FDA, it might not yet be available at all locations. You may want to call your pharmacy ahead of time to assure they have the COVID-19 vaccine and make an appointment if one is required or preferred. Remember to bring your insurance card if you have one. And you may be asked a few simple questions about your health to confirm eligibility. Again, because of this standing order, there is no prescription or doctor's visit required. Most insurance plans cover the cost of the vaccines. Increasing access to COVID-19 vaccines for people who want them helps to ensure more North Carolinians are protected as we head into a high-risk respiratory virus season. Thank you, and I will turn it over to Bailey Pennington, who will moderate reporter questions.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our formal remarks. So if any of our media partners on the call have questions, now would be the time. You can either put your question in the chat or raise your hand and we will call on you. Morgan Casey has our first question.
Can you hear me all right? Okay, cool.
My name is Morgan Casey. I'm a local health reporter based in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Is North Carolina in any conversations with other states to form a coalition around vaccine recommendations, as we've seen in the Northwest and Northeast?
I'll turn it to Secretary Sangvi.
Thank you, Morgan, for that question. We are aware that many states are in conversations to understand how to best implement immunization practices. We are currently not in any specific conversation, but are currently looking at ways that we may get involved with other states.
Thank you. We'll take our next question from Ashley Rowe.
Thank you so much. Hi, quick question for clarification. So this is for people 65 and older, and also those who are 18 years and older, who are over 18, who meet certain criteria. How is that worked out with the pharmacist? Can somebody who goes up to a pharmacist and says, "I've got diabetes" or "I have asthma," then get the vaccine without any issue?
Dr. Kimple, can you help answer that question, please?
I'm happy to. So they are 18 to 64 years old with certain health conditions. The pharmacy may ask certain questions or simply ask the person to attest to what are the conditions that would make them eligible. Again, there shouldn't be any medical documentation necessary to receive the vaccine.
We have a question in the chat from WUNC. What is the state doing to ensure access for people who are low income or do not have health insurance?
And Dr. Greenblatt, can I look to you to provide some clarity on what we're doing with respect to low-income individuals and individuals without health insurance?
Currently, the Medicaid program is paying for COVID vaccines for individuals who are beneficiaries, and that's based on last year's ACIP recommendations. And I don't know of any programs right now for individuals who don't have health insurance to be able to get a COVID-19 vaccine. And I'm wondering if Dr. Kimple knows, are they available at local health departments, or are there other programs for the uninsured?
So for communities and for people trying to access low-cost vaccines, I would recommend checking with your local health department in your community. Another option may be a community health center that may be in your area, again, trying to have different access points to vaccine.
Thank you. We'll go to Rose Hoban next.
Hi there. So this standing order thing, has this been done before?
So it has been done in other states, and there's a public act called the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, which for detail is 42 U.S.C. Section 247D-6D, which gives the governor the authority to request the standing order as was just requested.
Our next question is in the chat. Richard Craver asked, would this executive order, standing order, expire upon approval from ACIP recommendations next week, or would it remain in place in conjunction?
And I'm happy to answer that. It remains to be seen right now. What we don't want to do is create any further confusion for patients, providers, and pharmacists. So after ACIP meets, and if they come forth with a recommendation that then creates confusion between the ACIP recommendation and the standing order, we'll take action accordingly to limit or minimize any confusion.
Our next question asks, would members of the immigrant community be eligible to receive the vaccine if they fall within the CDC guidelines?
And Dr. Kimple, can you again talk to us a little bit about the eligibility for the vaccine?
Yeah, and this standing order really is opening up access to pharmacies as a point of convenient access for vaccine. I know there are broader conversations related to how can we increase access to all healthcare services, including vaccination. And again, if there are areas in the community, such as a local health department or a community health center, that can start to have that conversation with individuals that may be looking for that. vaccine or other health services.
All right, we'll move along to our next question. Is there any state guidance for people who do not fall in the 65 or older category, do not have any of those underlying health conditions? Are they still eligible to get the vaccine?
Dr. Greenblatt, what do I do if I don't meet those CDC guidelines and I'm still interested in getting the vaccine?
Right. No, that's a great question. There are individuals who might just choose to get a COVID-19 vaccine. Those individuals would not be covered under the state standing order, and they would need to get a prescription sent from their provider to the pharmacy, and then it's available to them.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat asking about the physical inactivity as a pre-existing condition. Does that mean I can tell my pharmacist that I do not get a lot of physical activity and be eligible to receive the vaccine?
Again, I think this gets to the issue of eligibility for that 18 to 64 group. Dr. Kimple, give us a little bit clarity on what that means.
So there are individuals that are at higher risk for complications, and there's a long list, I think, as Dr. Greenblatt mentioned, which includes physical inactivity. And this list has been accepted, and there's more information on a CDC website related to that. So again, going to a pharmacy, they may ask you to say if you attest to having one of those conditions, physical inactivity being one of those, and then you would be eligible to receive the vaccine.
We also have a question about insurance coverage. Is there any chance that my insurance will not cover the shot if I am under 65?
Again, another good question. We recommend individuals, if they have a question about coverage, to contact their insurance company to ensure that they are going to be covered and the circumstances under which they may be covered.
Thank you. We'll go to Patrick Thomas for a question.
Hi there. Thank you all for holding this. There's been, as you know, a lot of discussion about this, and I've actually had a lot of my pharmacy sources express a great amount of frustration on their own. And I'm wondering a few different things, but one, so I'll use myself for example. I'm 37. If I went to a pharmacy right now, I wouldn't be able to get a shot based on the guidelines because I don't have a health condition. Do I have that correct?
That is correct. Under those circumstances, you would not meet the eligibility criteria for a 37-year-old without a qualifying health condition. The standing order would not apply, and you would have to do what Dr. Greenblatt and Dr. Kimple outlined, is to get a prescription from your provider.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And then to follow up with that, so I presume this is a standing order in place of what is or is not to come from the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. Is that what that is until you hear from them?
Yeah, that's correct. So right now, what this will do is it'll fill in the gap between now and if ACIP takes any kind of recommendation on the COVID-19 vaccine. And at that time, we'll likely have to modify anything we do based on those recommendations. But what this allows us to do is to take action today. And I'm going to ask Dr. Kimple if she wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what our surveillance is showing now with respect to COVID disease in the community.
Course. And I think now is a good time because we do typically see a late summer surge in COVID-19, and our surveillance is showing that we are in that time. So we wanted to ensure that we were doing everything we could to increase access to COVID-19 vaccine, even if there is a gap before the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. And again, the standing order is in alignment with the FDA approval that has been issued.
Thank you all.
Thank you. We have about time for just a couple more questions. We'll go to the chat first. Clayton Hinkle asks, can you talk a little bit more about how you made this decision? Were you hearing from people turned away or perhaps confused by the mixed messaging in advance of ACIP's meeting next week?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, we've heard from multiple different constituents. We heard from the provider community that were getting inundated with phone calls requesting prescriptions. We heard from patients who thought they had the ability to access the vaccine at a pharmacy like they did last year, only to find out they need a prescription. And we've also heard from pharmacies who were saying that there were individuals coming to the counter requesting a COVID vaccine only to have to turn them away. So all three constituent communities have been communicating with all of us. I know Dr. Kimple has gotten those calls, Dr. Greenblatt as well. So this is really in response in large part to what the community has been asking for.
There was one more question as part of Clayton's ask. He said, as a reminder, if you had the booster last year, how important is it to get a fresh booster this year?
And that sounds like a perfect question for our State Health Director, Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Greenblatt.
Thank you. So the virus, as we've heard before, is always changing and evolving, and the what we have now in pharmacies is an updated COVID vaccine. So two issues here. One is immunity tends to decrease over time, and the other is the current vaccines have been modified, just like the flu vaccines are, to best match the current circulating strains. So I would certainly encourage those who want to be protected and definitely those who are at higher risk to go ahead and get their annual COVID shot soon.
And our final question will be from Ashley Rowe.
Thanks so much. If the ACIP does not recommend the vaccine for children, will you consider expanding the standing order to include children?
That's a great question. You know, the important thing about this standing order is entirely based on what the FDA is allowing and what the FDA has recommending. So we'll continue to look about any modification we'll need to make, but we want to make sure that we're in accordance with federal guidelines, the FDA and the CDC.
All right. Oh, that is about all the time that we have for today. Secretary Sangbai, Dr. Greenblatt, Dr. Kimple, thank you so much for your time and expertise today. And thank you to all of you for joining us. We really appreciate your interest in this, and please let us know if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you all.
All right, you've been listening into a press conference from Governor Josh Stein and state health officials about expanded access to the COVID-19 vaccine. They wanted to clear up some misinformation and also clarify who is now able to get a COVID-19 vaccine. Of course, this is all optional. Governor Josh Stein said, if you don't want to get it, you do not have to. But we do have a list of conditions that if you have one of these, you no longer need a prescription from a doctor to have access to the COVID-19 vaccine. That includes, it's really a broad list. It includes obesity, asthma, diabetes, physical activity also listed on there as one of the things. Any type of cancer, I'm really seeing lung disease. So quite a few things on this list if you want to go explore that. It also applies to people 65 and older. Any people 65 and older, you do not need a prescription. You can just go to the pharmacy and get your vaccine there. So that's some interesting information from the governor's office, similar to what some other states are doing. So it'll be interesting to see if even more follow after this. We've got some more headlines to get to in our next 20 minutes or so, but we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll see you right after. All right, coming back from your break, it is 3:42 on the clock, and we are paying attention to some close headlines here. Let's start with some traffic. You can see this was a crash on I-77 northbound around Clanton Road. We know that this was shut down. All lanes were shut down for a moment there, but they have reopened that back up. It looks like they are still getting things cleaned up. Multiple cars there with their hazards on, but all those lanes are good to go. So traffic there should be picking back up. You can see a school bus there might have been affected by those delays. So we will keep an eye on that situation for now, but it looks like for those drivers out there, smooth sailing. Also want to get a check of your forecast. You can see outside, it's obviously very beautiful. We've had a nice couple days of weather, and it sounds like that's going to continue into the weekend. Here's a look from our Becca Birdsall.
Good Friday afternoon. We've got some gorgeous weather to kickstart this September weekend off. High temperatures today will be right where they were for yesterday afternoon. Yesterday we reached a high of 84 degrees. That is actually our average high for this time of year. So these are very seasonable fall-like conditions expected. We'll have a mix of sunshine and clouds around 8 o'clock, falling into the middle 70s. 11 p.m. starting to fall into the upper 60s. But the mountains, probably the place to be. They'll have afternoon temperatures in the lower 70s. Lots of sunshine to go around, perfect for any outdoor activities. That also extends into the greater Charlotte area. Of course, if you're heading off to Scarowinds tonight, they officially reopened. We've got fantastic conditions, clear skies, like I mentioned, falling to the upper 70s, close to around 7 o'clock. So the great weather continues, not only today, but to this weekend as well. But temperatures, highs especially, will be on the rise each and every day, with rain chances finally returning by the time we get into early next week. Do expect a breeze for today, anywhere from 10 to 15 miles per hour. As we fast forward into your Saturday, we'll ramp up just a bit with max wind gusts expected to be around 20 miles per hour. Overall, really comfortable days ahead. And that is all thanks to this surface high pressure system bringing those dry and tranquil conditions across the mid-Atlantic, with those dew points still in that comfortable range, especially further up in elevation. 50s can be expected with those dew points, lower to middle 60s, still fairly comfortable air out there. Remember, dew point is a measure of how much moisture is in the atmosphere. The higher the dew point, the more uncomfortable it is. So dew points in the lower to middle 60s, again, like I mentioned, fairly comfortable. That will extend through the weekend. If you haven't made any plans yet, here is your excuse to do so. Each morning we'll start off middle to upper 50s out there. So if you do have any outdoor plans, especially early on, definitely want to grab that light jacket. But you'll want to shed it for the afternoon. Now, pick of the weekend, if you like cooler weather, will definitely be Saturday. Lots of sun to go around. Highs will only be in the lower 80s. By the time we get into Sunday, like I mentioned, that's when we start to get a little bit above average, 86 expected. So again, if you like the warmer weather, then maybe Sunday is that pick of the weekend for you. Today is September 12th, and on average, that is our last 90-degree day. As we look ahead in the next 7 days, we have nothing but 80-degree temperatures expected. Like I mentioned, a bit of a warm-up going into your Sunday. Maybe a few of our South Carolina counties getting closer to the upper 80s, but middle 80s is what we'll do in the greater Charlotte area Sunday and Monday before temperatures drop as we get our next rain chance Tuesday, Wednesday, potentially lingering into Thursday as well. But those highs will start to increase by the second half of next week. It is rain-free from today all the way through Monday. Like I mentioned, early Tuesday morning is when we'll start to get a few of those scattered showers going. We'll linger into Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even towards the end of the work week as well. Checking in on the tropics, we did have that tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa, producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms, but it is moving into a favorable environment as it continues to move westward in the open waters of the Atlantic. So we'll likely see this become our next tropical depression, especially by the early to mid of next week, but does have a 40% chance of some sort of tropical cyclone development going into the next 7 days by the National Hurricane Center. Of course, this is the peak of hurricane season, but this is still over 3,000 miles away from the United States. We'll have plenty of time to keep an eye on this. Next name on the list would be Gabrielle. In this Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast, we've got super great weather in this forecast from today all the way through this weekend, extending into Monday. Keep in mind these morning temperatures will be a touch chilly, upper 50s to lower 60s, but temperatures warming up Saturday 82, 86 for Monday, or 86 for Sunday, continuing into Monday, with those rain chances going up and temps dropping Tuesday and Wednesday.
All right, that was our Becca Birdsall with a very lucky forecast that we have. Looking good this weekend. A little bit of rain next week, but not too bad. Can't complain with that. We're going to continue with some of the headlines we're following. Of course, here in Charlotte, the biggest story has been the murder of Irina Zarutska and the aftermath of that. The questions still looming in the community in terms of safety on the light rail, justice for her murder, and what happens next for DeCarlos Brown, the man who is suspected of killing her. So I was there yesterday in Raleigh at a press conference from state Republican leaders that includes Senate Leader Phil Berger and House Speaker Destin Hall, where they were announcing legislative action that they hope to have finalized in the coming weeks when the General Assembly heads back later this month. That includes more restrictions for judge magistrates. It also includes potentially looking into the budget here in Charlotte and how Charlotte, the city, and Mecklenburg County spends their money. So we listened to a little bit of that earlier. We're going to head back now and listen into some of that Q&A, I believe.
A litany of the things that were recommended, but my understanding is that task force recommendations are still posted on the internet unless they were taken down last night, and there are a number of things that just indicate a real willingness to pay more attention to the concerns of the perpetrators than the real concerns of the victims. And we can go ahead and get you copies of those, and but my understanding is it's still up on the internet.
I guess the question would be, those are recommendations, but what policies have been enacted on?
But what they do is they reflect an attitude on policing, an attitude on criminal justice, an attitude on how things ought to be taking place, and those attitudes, in many respects, are the things that inform the kinds of decisions that were made by the magistrate in this case and by other magistrates that are of the same political ilk.
And I will just add that I have had conversations with chiefs of police, with sheriffs, with law enforcement officers all across North Carolina. And the one thing that they continue to come back to is that when we're talking about the safety of community, leadership matters. And that they feel it is absolutely critical for leadership at the top to be able to support our law enforcement community, to be able to make sure they're out there. You know, when we talk about DeCarlos Brown Jr. being arrested 14 times, that's a threat to every police officer that had to have an interaction with him beyond the first one. And so when we talk about having really truly public officials who are fighting harder every single day for the criminals and their rights than for the victims, that is the problem that we really truly want to address here.
Speaker Hall, you mentioned the overview of magistrates wasn't an issue in this particular case, but would you support legislation that would mandate all magistrates have a law degree?
Well, that's something that that we're looking at as well. Some states do require that. You know, right now the way our law is set up, magistrates have quite a bit of discretion, and you know there's a process that they go through with the clerk and the resident senior superior court judge to appoint them, but they have a lot of discretion in given cases. And in the past in this state, that's worked, but it's clearly not working anymore. And as Senator Berger said, I think it's this sort of the general idea that when you hear from the governor's office that we're recommending, this task force recommends a cashless bail system, and you have magistrates who have a lot of discretion in the cases they're dealing with, you can see how in some areas where those magistrates may begin to believe, well, we ought to move towards more of that sort of system, and they have the discretion to let somebody out on a written promise to appear. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I also have some concerns with some of the nonprofit groups who have reportedly been giving funds to Mecklenburg County or the Sheriff's Office, whatever the case may be. Many of those groups have one of their stated goals being ending cash bail or otherwise, you know, keeping people out of the jail instead of in jail waiting for trial. And so, you know, ultimately, no matter if you have somebody there with a law degree or not, if there's wide discretion in a given case, you're going to have circumstances where mistakes maybe are made, and so that's why we're looking closer at some mandates on folks who have violent felony convictions, like the individual in this case, saying in those cases that a written promise or a cashless bail is just simply not an option. The other thing that our law currently does, in certain cases, it requires an actual judge. So a district court judge in most cases requires them to make the decision on pretrial conditions of release. That's the case often in domestic violence cases. And so that's another possibility that we may look at in serious cases, simply taking that out of the hands of magistrates and saying that that decision has to be made by a district court judge or a superior court judge. At least they have some accountability to the voters, where magistrates simply don't. So there's all options are on the table. There are a lot of tweaks that we can make to our current system that would largely prevent this sort of thing from happening again. And look, I'm hopeful we'll have a bipartisan solution on that. We did in the past the Pretrial Integrity Act, but I can just tell you we're going to do all we can in this upcoming legislation. We'll be back here in a couple of weeks, and so not a quick turnaround to be able to get all that together. And this is going to be an ongoing issue, but we're trying to strike to the heart of the problem and make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, if I could follow up on that, I think if the focus is on credentials, I think we're missing what the real problem there is, and the real problem there is the attitude that results in the kind of discretion that gets utilized. And so what I think we need to do is reduce the ability of some magistrates to have that broad discretion that they currently have, and make sure that we get a little more consistency in terms of the decisions that get made. You shouldn't have to have that sort of thing. You would hope that people that have good, solid, common sense judgment are occupying those positions, regardless of whether they have a law degree or any other credential. Excuse me.
Are there specific measures that you're looking at so I know the bill's not out yet. We've just had, 2 really high-profile public violence. If there's something that addresses both the security of the light rail, not just the, the person charged, and then with the Charlie Kirk assassination, just these general public spaces and people having these fears of violence and what security measures are there, or why would any new laws be needed for just the broader rest of us?
Yeah, so I know I've had some conversations with folks in Charlotte, and I know the speaker is as well, and I'm pretty sure that Michael has. One of the problems is he would not have been on the light rail if they had been enforcing the requirement that you have to pay a fare. So those are the sorts of things that I'm hopeful that the folks in Charlotte will start to address in a meaningful way, and the conversations I've had lead me to believe that they are at least having those conversations. So there are a lot of those sorts of things. I don't know. We're going to look at everything, whether or not the package that we come up with will actually specifically address that sort of thing or not. In that way, I just couldn't say. And then as far as public spaces and places where people are having events, I think in some respects our ability to legislate specific rules about that kind of thing are severely limited. I like to tell folks that in many respects legislation is a very blunt instrument at times. I think people need to be aware of the need to have security available, and our local law enforcement obviously needs to be consulted whenever anybody is planning to have an event that draws a sizable crowd.
Are either of you concerned about your own safety and of other, political figures when you're in spaces, outside this building?
So I'll speak to that. You know, we have a great group here at the General Assembly Police who work close with, for every member, their local law enforcement officials, and they monitor things that come in. And so, you know, we take those things seriously, and we do that really in a bipartisan way. You know, I think Representative Reeves would tell you that we've communicated with him in the past on issues that have come up, and, you know, we don't let any partisanship get in the way of safety. And so, you know, the other thing that I think it's critical that we look at in this state in particular is our involuntary commitment rules. You know, nationally, over the course of probably the last 20, 30, 40 years, there's been more of a movement to people not being in mental health hospitals. And so it's become the case that today in most states, it's extremely difficult to have someone involuntarily committed. So we need to take a close look at that and what we need to do to make sure that folks who don't need to be out on the street, who need to be in a hospital somewhere, that can happen. And so that's a longer term conversation. There might be some low-hanging fruit there that we can go ahead and do. But ultimately, you know, I look at my role as Speaker. You know, I have some duty to do what I can to protect the safety of all the members of the House. And whether that's Republican or Democrat, when you know, any sort of perceived threat comes in, you know, we act quickly. Give them all the resources that they need, but you know, fundamentally, it's you know, it's a sad day in this country when we're dealing with you know, issues like that, where you have to worry about that sort of thing, and what we saw yesterday. And you know, it's a different country today than it was, frankly, yesterday. And you know, it's you know, coming on right here on the anniversary of September the 11th, and you know, it's not clear what this will mean for this country and this state. But what I know is it's going to take really folks on both sides and leaders on both sides stepping forth, you know, and simply repudiating any sort of political violence whatsoever. That's not the way that we handle disputes in this country. We handle disputes through our words. And
all right. You have been listening into a press conference yesterday from Republican state leaders on what comes next for the case of Irina Zarutzka.